Well, good evening and welcome to Movie Watch Live. And tonight we commemorate the 80th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor, almost to the day. It was a Sunday like today, 80 years ago, December 7th, 1941, when a surprise military strike made by the Imperial Japanese Navy Air Service upon the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor in Honolulu shocked the world. And we're watching a movie that was made in 1970 to commemorate the events, which is Tora, 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 directed by Richard Fleischer and also Toshio Masuda and Kinji Fukasaku in the Japanese production part of the movie, which was itself based upon a book of the same name in 1969, written by Gordon Prange, and it tells the story of the events quite sincerely as they unfolded prior to the attack and then the events during the attack as well. And joining me tonight is my co-host and co-pilot, Ensign Ralph. Good evening, Ralph. How are you doing? And have you seen this movie before?
Yeah, I have seen it. Oh wow, it's been a long time. I haven't been back, haven't revisited this one for several years, but doing well. Looking forward to this tonight. Um, from the American perspective, the attack on Pearl Harbor is a huge moment in history,
Mm-hmm.
and it's what catapulted us into World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And it's you know for the majority of my life, I couldn't imagine what people felt. The closest I think we in America, from my generation, could have imagined happened on September 11th. So
Mm-hmm.
this was the first time. I mean, the British, not counting the British, this was the first time basically our homeland had been attacked by an invading power. So
Mm-hmm.
very, very big historic moment. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I think,
Absolutely.
oh yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, sorry to interrupt you. I was going to say it was I can't think of any other occasions in the Second World War where the enemy was able to attack the United States territory so close as they did with Pearl Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
And in the American mind, this is probably one of the defining moments, not just of the American history, but world history. It changed the course of the war, and
Oh yeah,
obviously, as a Brit, um, you know, it was the ironic thing was it was for us a saving grace because it meant America entered the war, and finally we had an ally with us in the war. Who, if America hadn't have joined the war, it would have been a very different outcome for Britain potentially. So,
yeah.
you know,
Well, and I'm sure at some point we would have been drug into the war, but yeah, this was absolutely a you know a it was a shot in the gut.
mm,
We in America we're blessed because we are separated by an ocean on either side, which keeps
mhm,
us mainly safe.
mm,
But this really shook the American people, and I will also say it was a rather big miscalculation on the part of the Japanese
mhm,
because
mhm,
similar to if you know your American history, remember the Alamo when the Alamo was attacked.
mhm,
Pearl Harbor gave America a rally point to get behind, and that's
this is it.
when Americans stop infighting and start working together. That's when the
Mm,
rest of the world needs to be concerned. So,
exactly. We. I mean, it's a solemn occasion. Obviously, the 80th anniversary coming up on Tuesday. But obviously, today being a Sunday is almost to the day, the Sunday that it happened 80 years ago.
mhm.
And just to imagine, people in America would have been getting ready for Christmas and doing all those things. And then the news comes through that, an American territory, Pearl Harbor, had been attacked. And just to know that, and to know that suddenly everything had changed. And of course, the the president made that amazing speech, quite shortly afterwards, and of course Churchill joined in with the American speech by the president a few days later, and that those speeches are moments in history and defining moments of the 20th century.
Yeah.
And it changed warfare as well. It changed warfare completely, from battleship exchanges to air superiority. This was the birth of air warfare, really, in regard to, we had aeroplanes in the First World War, but this was airplanes defining the course of the war. The Germans had used the plane in the Blitzkrieg, and obviously to bomb Britain during the Blitz, but also this change. This was the theme of the Pacific War, and aircraft carriers, and significantly, which weren't damaged in this attack. Was a huge
the
thing.
ironic part of it. Yeah.
So
and you're absolutely right. This was a major shift from traditional naval warfare, where you're looking at basically battleships slugging it out on the ocean, or shelling infantry positions on beaches from, generally battleships would drop, I forget how many thousands of pound shells from 16 miles out. So they're over the horizon shelling. And it changed from that to now carrier-based, moving in using small aircraft to basically swarm positions on the ground and in the ocean. And it was as huge a jump as going from trench warfare in World War I to the more traditional warfare or the more modern warfare that we saw from World War II on.
It was a huge, massive jump. I mean, the the transition from naval warfare was just completely changed, and that's something that they sort of illustrate in this movie. There's a scene between the Japanese admirals where they're arguing about this, and the Japanese did ponder this. I mean, we have had people suggest many times that the Japanese admiral in charge of this operation was exposed to a book which detailed that Pacific War, and perhaps that was used as the plan. Some people believe that was the basis for the whole plan that the Japanese came up with. There's some strong suggestions towards that, but there's a lot that we can't prove there. So I think the plan in the end was determined because of the change in warfare, and air superiority became a big thing.
Yes.
But we've got Jeff in the chat who says,
Hey,
I'm going
Jeff.
to make random machine gun noises, and here's some here.
Yeah, absolutely do.
And
As you can see, I am in my
Aruga. That's the siren going off.
Oh yeah. You got the klaxon going. Yeah, as you can see, I am in my F4F Wildcat with my shots of whiskey that are along the sides. And of course, spoiler alert, the F4F Wildcat didn't do dookie in this battle.
That's correct. It's because Matty says, "Is Ralph drunk yet?" Probably.
Actually, I am not. Okay, I was teasing because I was like, okay, yeah, that's me. But no, actually, I am mostly sober, and we're gonna give this one its due. We will probably poke some fun at the movie, but not the event itself.
Exactly. I mean, in the movie, I think it's hinted that Admiral Yamamoto, who was obviously the top of the Navy, the head guy for the Japanese Imperial Navy, is reluctant to attack America, feeling that it's just going to result in America defeating Japan eventually, and that's sort of hinted in the movie. But certainly, the attack on Pearl Harbor, as we'll see, although horrific and devastating, was just the start of the war for the Americans. And just 6 months later, you had Midway. So it's incredible the transformation that occurred in the American military in a very short space of time.
Oh, absolutely. The American military, all the way around. But I'm very, very hesitant to name some of the more modern movies, although they do get some things right. But the American military, especially the Navy, had a lot of things that they had to get up to speed on as far as tactics, getting away from old bad habits. And we also had to make some substantial jumps in technology in order to really be an effective fighting force.
Well, that's it. I think a bit like the British armed forces, no preparation. Well, it's possibly different with the American armed forces, but I know in the British armed forces, not a lot of preparation was made in the 30s when Hitler was arming himself and things were changing. But even when you look at the standard sort of pot helmet that Britain, the Tommies used, and it was a standard helmet that was used since First World War. And then you see that same equipment worn by the GIs and basically the naval staff. And it's strange because obviously it wasn't until this event happened that everything was revolutionized and the American equipment was updated, and they had this, the well-known equipment and helmets that you recognize, the M1.
The M1 Garand. Oh,
Yeah.
wait a minute. Cosmeti's making a sad face. Does that mean I need to pour some scotch?
Okay. She's unhappy that you're not drunk.
So. All right. Well, hold on. We'll have to fix that then.
And we've got Kevin Riggs in the chat who says, "Oy vey."
Hey, hello, Kevin. My last bit of scotch.
There we go. Right, well, that's official. We better get started now because the call.
Yep. So prep them while I air this out.
So, this show is a commentary show. We will show interesting images and extracts and bits of information to do with the movie throughout, and our own inside knowledge, our understanding and interpretation. We'll discuss the movie, and pretty much if you like movies and you like to talk about movies, you like to think about what they mean and how well they're done and what the implications are and any themes and how it's influenced culture, all that kind of stuff, and interesting Easter eggs and all that kind of stuff, then obviously this is the show that you will be interested in. A lot of people are. And if you can't watch live, that's okay, because a lot of people watch these shows recorded. But we have a lot of these shows have become really, really popular. So tonight, I mean, the bottom line is we want to do right by the memory of Pearl Harbor, and ultimately the reason for doing this is not just this movie itself, Tora, 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 and enjoying this movie as a form of historical representation, but also the fact that we're thinking back to those events and respecting the memory of that day, which, as we know, was the day which will last in infamy. As it was said at the time. So what we normally do is have our own copy of the movie, and we'll synchronize this, and we have a boomer-proof way of doing this with a little 3, 2, 1 countdown that I use.
You say boomer-proof, but I think
even
I
then
could
it
probably
doesn't work, does it? Yeah, I know. It's surprising how easy I still end up boomering. Jeff Potts says, one thing to remember is that Tora, Tora, Tora was billed and still continues to be one of the most accurate depictions of Pearl Harbor. That's absolutely correct, Jeff. And to be honest, in today's movie making circles, people always try to put their own spin on it. But at least with this movie, they did really try to stick to the events as accurately as possible. And that was a complicated job. It involved two different production teams, one in the States and one in America, one in Japan. A little bit about that, a little bit of trivia about the Japanese production unit. That's interesting. We'll come to later. But yeah, it was a huge project. It cost a lot of money. And it was actually a lot more popular in Japan in the end than it was in America, because it came at a weird time, didn't it, Ralph, with like Vietnam and everything. So
yeah, 69, 70, the Vietnam War was the Vietnam War was at a very unpopular point. So yeah, war movies weren't what people wanted to go see.
This is it, and I think it happened at a weird time because 70, I think you're right, 41, so just just 29 years later, culture had changed massively. Jeff says another World War II movie, Midway, was also pretty historic. It was the original Midway we're talking about. Is that right? Not the remake.
Yeah, I hope all right. The remake had some good parts in it. The Jonas Brothers and Harry Styles, though.
Yeah, no, not good. Anything with Harry Styles in, just turn over.
Yeah, he just doesn't strike me as fighter pilot.
He doesn't strike me as normal. So basically,
that's fair.
Jeff Potts says, and of course, there's the historicity of Lord of the Rings. Well, yes, inspired by the First World War, that wasn't it? But I mean, that's nothing to do with Pearl Harbor, though, Jeff. But Midway from the 70s.
There you go.
Yeah.
I would
definitely.
agree.
That is. I mean, it is a really good movie. That one from the 70s. The remake, I wouldn't really go to watch ever.
Yeah.
Quite disappointing. I saw bits of it and I thought, no thanks. But yeah,
well,
Jeff's saying Frodo is real. Yeah, well, Jeff, we're gonna have to intervene sometime. We're gonna book you in to a clinic or something.
Yeah.
Frodo.
The best thing about the Midway remake was watching which Jonas brother was it get shoved off the side of a boat with an anchor tied around his ankles.
Don't know even. It's just no. But the 70s were like 60s and 70s were so many historical war movies made. And I think it was in the right time zone because that was when a lot of money was spent on these productions. So it comes from that era of all of the top, whenever you look at the top war movies that document things historically, this is right in the center of that period.
And the fact that the movie creators made an effort to be as accurate as possible, and it's I think that probably was part of the reason why it was successful more successful in Japan, and it just doesn't demonize the Japanese people. There's motivations behind what they're doing, and
it is. They're portrayed as this is a reason we're doing it. I mean, don't get me wrong. The regime was responsible for so many atrocities at the time. That regime.
Yeah, and admittedly, they were mostly gentle with Hirohito too. But
very, very, I would say. Jeff says a more recent movie that tried to stay true to actual events was Gettysburg. Yeah, that is a really, really good version of events.
I have not watched that. I'll have to.
Very, very long. It's a long movie, but it's a good movie. It's one that you might have to. Interestingly, take a break and halfway. This movie is old enough to have an intermission of 2 minutes right in the middle.
Sweet.
So that's enough time to get some, intermission candy and popcorn and perhaps an albatross while you're waiting for the movie Albatross. Though that's another story. So we're going to get started. Like I say, we all have our own version of this movie. We're going to play and synchronize this all together. We'll give you timestamps throughout, and we'll describe what's going on in the movie, and obviously make comments on that. And obviously, everybody in the chat is welcome to join in and make comments. And we, as we can see, we are willing to read them out. Jeff Potts says Albatross.
Yes. And as is customary, abuse is usually heaped upon me in my drunken stupor. So,
well, that's it. And I will just be ridiculed for my general boomerishness anyway. So you know, that's just given.
It's Night of the Boomers.
That's it. So we'll get started, and we have this fantastic little video here, which hopefully I won't press the wrong button, which allows me to synchronize our copies of the movie. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. So whichever way you've got this, on a download, or if you've got it on a DVD, whichever way you want to watch it, we're going to
Or if you're VHS like me.
Yeah. Hopefully not a laser disc. They were actually good invention, but no, that's another show. Right, yeah. So let's get ready to rumble, and let's go.
3, 2, 1.
There we go. So,
all right.
I forgot to say you're supposed to press play when the little arrows come up, but I didn't.
Oh, well, see, we boomered it already. All right. Yes. Okay, Cosmeti, you caught me. I'm actually running Betamax. So,
yeah, VHS. This opening scene with Admiral Yamamoto, when he meets all of his officers on the battleship, it was a full-scale replica of the ship, complete from bow to stern, a mock-up float plane on a catapult. It was built on a beach in Japan next to the replica of the aircraft carrier Akagi. The Akagi set consisted of about 2/3 of the deck and the island area. So this is a full-scale replica. This is authentic.
Yeah, I've got to give them the set pieces that they built were just this, for example, this one is amazing. If you've ever actually visited any kind of World War II battleship, you know that we've got several of them in the U.S. that you can go to. They are impressive machines.
Yeah. This is it. The Japanese Navy was, for the size of the nation, incredible. The entire nation was a factory, wasn't it? The producing weapons. Jeff says the only true way to play it is on 70s Laserdisc. So there you go.
There you go.
That's what we should be all watching it on. So Goldsmith, Jerry Goldsmith, does the soundtrack. I love that shot there with the 3 zeros just going straight past.
Well,
and same sort of line as the camera, the horizontal line.
Yeah, No. Go ahead. The cinematography in this, is they've got some beautiful shots in here.
Yeah, this opening sequence, I can see what the director Fleischer was trying to do, but there's a lot of camera shake because he's on a moving boat.
Yeah,
and when we talk about movies are so easy to make now. The opening sequence, you can see what the director is wanting to do, but if he had the technology we've got today, he would have had a really smooth shot as he goes out.
Yeah, did they even did they even have Steadicam in 69, 68, 69?
I don't think they did. But talking about Midway, most of the replica Japanese planes in this movie were also used in Midway 6 years later. And also in the final countdown, 1980. Let's not mention that.
Really? I didn't know that.
Oh, dear me. It's one of those movies that, okay, when I was a kid, I really enjoyed it.
Well,
but like,
two things. First off, you get to see an F-14 splash Japanese Zeros, and second, it was the Jolly Rogers, which was my favorite air wing from the Navy back in the
yeah,
80s. So yeah,
yeah. Well,
and
it is an
interesting.
entertaining movie. It has to be said. It's definitely
Oh
very
yeah.
funny.
Well, and
Uh,
interestingly enough, that was the carrier was the Enterprise, which was in the general area of Pearl Harbor, but was not at Pearl Harbor that day.
Yes, very interesting point there. So here we have the Chief of Staff, the Japanese Imperial Navy Chief of Staff members there, the admirals, discussing Yamamoto and about how he is sort of anti-establishment. He's sort of a maverick. He doesn't agree with the Imperial command, which was Hirohito. But this was all the Japanese stuff was filmed by a Japanese production unit, and
Yeah.
that was the directors Toshiro Masuda and Kinji Fukusaku. And a little known fact that Akira Kurosawa was originally chosen to direct those sequences. And as you know, Akira Kurosawa, who's one of the best directors ever, who directed a lot of the samurai movies, was actually fired because, well, I'll go into the reasons, but the Japanese sequences were at least 3 weeks late behind schedule. Elmo Williams, not Elmo from Sesame Street, but Elmo Williams, the producer at the time, solved the problem by hiring these two directors. And they were actually really good directors. You can see these are really great shots
Yeah.
at the start where Yamamoto is meeting the rest of his staff on the flagship there, the Japanese flagship.
Well, and you got folks have to keep in mind too, because you got to say they fired Kurosawa. Why would they fire Kurosawa? And Kurosawa had a lot of clout, kind of did his own thing, and when the studio's like, "Hey, we need you to do this," it's kind of like, I don't think so. I'll do it my
Yes,
way. So,
yes. And what else did he? Oh, we're meeting Yoshida as well, who was the vice admiral, who was we'll meet again later on in the movie, because these two guys, they're changing roles. He's officially taking control of the ship, so they'd go through the ceremony for taking control of the ship. But these two guys are discussing later on in the movie how the Japanese head command is a bit crazy. What does Jeff say here? He says, if you look close, you can see Godzilla in the background destroying Tokyo very,
yeah,
very faintly on the horizon there.
that is a hard to catch Easter
There you
egg.
go.
Sharp eyes
There
there,
you go.
Jeff.
Thank you for that, Jeff. Jeff is our Easter egg specialist. And but yeah, the Kurosawa was fired because he was trying to cast his friends and business associates and high level businessmen as actors in the movie, just so they would do him a favor later on,
Oh yeah.
give him money when he started making movies again afterwards. So he was just trying. It was a bit cheeky, to say the least. So that's why he
Well,
got fired. But basically, of all the time and money spent by Kurosawa, there's less than 1 minute of the film he shot in the final version. So I think
oops.
Elmo is keen to sort of stamp him out and say, nope, none of your
Yeah.
stuff's going to get used. So there you go.
Well, I've got to point out here too, if you have anyone that has a military background, especially the Navy, U.S. Navy, and it's obvious here with the scenes from the Japanese Navy as well. Navy is all about ceremony, so
Exactly.
there's a ceremony for everything, and so that sets it up very well with the changing of the command there.
Yeah, and this is where we get the Prime Minister of Japan discussing potentially they're now discussing the attack. They needed to well, they were going to go to the supply corner, they called it, which was, they believed it belonged to them, and they were going to use those raw materials. And they knew that America would attack them if they did that, or potentially attack them, because, for instance, the Philippines was also attacked at the same time, the American base in the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what's made the Japanese high command decide on a preemptive strike.
Yeah. And logistically, it makes a lot of sense because, the U.S. hit us while we're not prepared. I don't know if it's the same in the UK, but in between wars, politicians do politician stuff. So there's a lot of fighting. There's not a lot in the way of military development. There's a lot of arguing and things. So, it's a sound strategy that they're proposing right now.
And just to seal the deal, for anybody watching it, by the way, because Matty's laughing at that comment, seal the deal, we have the tripartite pact being signed, which was a key event leading up to the attack on Pearl Harbor, where the Japanese, Saburo Kurusu, the Japanese ambassador in Germany, signed the pact with the Germans and the Italians. So that's pretty much sealing the deal. Meanwhile,
the creation
in Washington,
of the
DC,
Axis powers,
this is it. And DC, which at the time wasn't filled with soy latte cafes,
otherwise, with just if it had all the Starbucks that it has now, it would look exactly the same.
Exactly, and you're going to see Joseph Cotton here as Henry L. Stimson. So the famous actor used to act with guess who? You remember? We did Third Man. Orson Welles.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I did not catch that.
Joseph Cotton. Well, they used to do all the movies together. So he's playing Henry L. Stimson, Secretary of War.
Okay.
And
gotcha.
And here is this is the Japanese ambassador whose voice is completely dubbed over, and it's totally obvious.
Yeah, that's I'll give them at least
Paul
the
Reese
room
did his
sound.
voice.
Yeah, at least the room sound is pretty closely matched.
You catch a little bit of his voice at the start, and I think maybe he had a strong Japanese accent, but they should have just left that in.
Well,
just left it in,
Yeah, so, I mean, as someone that has spoken with Japanese people, they have to put up with my accent, and they tend to have one of their own. So,
indeed, and it's a shame, really, but never mind.
Yeah, if you go back, if you watch movies that are filmed from areas where I grew up, they usually have subtitles, even though we're speaking English. So,
So we're going to get, obviously get introductions with all of these characters in the movie because we're dealing with real events. So this is a decoding machine. I don't think it's the Enigma, is it? Because
no, Enigma was Germany. This one was, I think, purple.
Yeah, that was it. This is Kramer, head of intelligence, naval intelligence.
No, not to be confused with Kramer from Seinfeld.
Yeah, this is it. That would have been, if he'd been in charge of the intelligence department, it would have been a disaster. Yeah. And this is the code machine, which you're going to see later in the movie. The president was denied access to. They cut him out with a magic circle. This is Colonel Bratton, who was the Far Eastern section leader for Chief of the Army, G2. He was based in DC at the time. Now, the coding machine, they were able to intercept messages and decode them faster than Japanese could decode them. But strangely, as we're going to see, for some reason, that chain of communication didn't work when it came to the attack on Pearl Harbor.
That is another thing that happens during outside of wartime is that the bureaucracy gets bigger and bigger and
Exactly.
bigger, and it gets
Exactly.
slower and slower.
Oh, we've got a Colonel Morg who says, I
Ooh.
subscribe to the belief that one should never, ever, ever ally with the modern Italian state or everything gets wrapped up.
Well, I can't argue with that.
That is
I have,
a sound philosophy to have.
yeah. Now the aircraft that they're using for the Japanese Zeros, and actually for basically all of the Japanese aircraft, are modified T6 Texans. So these are all U.S. aircraft, and
Amazing though, isn't it?
they did a really good job because these are actually the torpedo bombers. These aren't the Zeros, but
Yeah,
they
so
actually.
sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say they wanted to use Japanese aircraft from World War II, and they even went so far as to go to Pacific Islands, where the Japanese had bases
And
where the U.S. had
abandoned them.
gone by. Right. But they realized that they would have to take so many aircraft in due to the 20 years that they had been out in the jungles
Man,
that they'd have to take like 5 or 6 aircraft to be able to scrap enough together to get one plane to
one
fly.
plane.
So it was more
Shocking.
cost effective to modify the T6 Texans.
Well, apparently here I've got a bit of stuff here on that, which is that
Oh, yes.
the replicas were owned by the Commemorative Air Force, and it was an organization that specialized in reenactments, and they used every year, and that's been
Oh,
going since
yes.
'72. So they do these reenactments. But yeah, the three we should mention quickly. This is where Yamamoto's questioning his quick shot of Pearl Harbor there. We know it's Pearl Harbor because it says Pearl Harbor on the screen.
Exactly.
Now, obviously, that's a really nice miniature.
It is a good miniature. They do have to use miniatures in here, and I think they do pretty good work with it. They do actually trying to see. I think this is the Arizona.
Is it the
And
Arizona?
yeah, and they actually built a full-sized partial model of the Arizona to film on.
Well, let's do a quick rundown of the aircraft. I think that on the screen here we have Martin Balsam, who always reminds me of Ernest Borgnine. I don't know why. I used to get the two mixed up when I was a kid. But he's playing Admiral Kimmel, who was the commander-in-chief of the entire show.
Yeah.
5-star general, buddy. Oh, Admiral, I should say, not general.
Yeah.
Slap hand. But yeah, he's the big guy. And therein, I think it's a consolidated Catalina.
I believe that you are correct on that one.
So Catalina patrol boat, flying boat. I need to get another look at it. Actually, I didn't know it had skis on the bottom, but I need to get another look at it. But so let's very quickly recap on the planes. The Japanese were flying Aichi D3A, carrier-borne dive. Yeah, that's a Catalina. Dive bombers. They also had, they had their own float planes, but the other three main aircraft they used were obviously the Zero, which, their own word for that is Raisen, which was the Mitsubishi A6M Raisen, carrier-borne naval fighter bomber, and they also used the Nakajima B5N or Kate. Carrier-borne torpedo bomber. So there's three different planes. You've got the torpedo bomber, you've got the multi-purpose fighter bomber, the Zero, and you've got the sort of mainstay aircraft, which is the Aichi carrier-borne bomber, dive bomber. So
now, and quick thing. So for everybody that's listening at home, that's like, okay, they've said a whole lot of junk here. Quick way that you can tell the aircraft apart. For example, we just saw a Zero land on the deck. Japanese Zeros are single-seat aircraft. with retractable landing gear.
Mm-hmm.
The Val dive bombers have fixed landing gear, so you'll always see the wheels down on them. The
Yep.
Kate torpedo bombers also have retractable gear, but you'll see them. They'll have the torpedo slung underneath, and they have multiple seats in them. So quick way to
Yes.
tell.
Was it about three crew members in the
I
dive
believe
bomber?
that is correct. Yes.
So yeah, I mean the Japanese by this stage had a formidable naval air force, and we've just seen the latest Zero come to land, and he said, obviously he's saying, is it faster than Messerschmitt or Spitfire? Definitely, I've seen both in combat over London.
Yeah, the strengths of the Japanese Zero were it was very long range, had good armament, and it had an extremely tight turning radius. It wasn't the fastest. The U.S. had some faster aircraft, but if you could lure the enemy into a turning fight, the Japanese Zero was a formidable aircraft.
And
at the time, it could outturn anything, I believe.
Is it true that they ripped off the design for Howard Hughes' Racer, H1 Racer?
I'm not sure of that. It wouldn't surprise me if they did, but as far as I know, I haven't read anything on that.
That's a beautiful shot. What have we just seen there, Ralph? Those two aircraft?
You just saw two P-40 Tomahawks. At the time, that was what the Army Air Corps had as its main flying platform for and at Pearl Harbor, that was the main fighter that we had.
Yep. And what were they? I mean, were they a decent aircraft?
They were a good aircraft. They were faster than the Zero. They were durable. They couldn't turn as well, but they were actually used by the Flying Tigers in China by Chenault and his group. And what they did was they took advantage of the speed. For example, a Japanese Zero could only get up to around 350 miles an hour in a dive. A P-40 could get to 480, sometimes close to 500 miles an hour in a dive. So they would get up top, wait for the Zeros to go underneath, and then dive on them. So fairly evenly
they were
matched.
Decent aircraft, really. And you were saying before the show that only two aircraft actually got in the air. We see this happen in the movie, but it's shocking that the entire squadron. There was a 3 or 4. How many air bases or strips did
I believe
have?
3, because you had
strips.
Ford, Hickam, and I think one more.
And Hickam just got plastered, didn't it?
Oh yeah, Hickam was devastated. And I read up a little more. I believe it was actually only 5 aircraft got into the air, and all of those went up against everything that the Japanese threw at them. So it's a miracle that any of those guys survived.
We're seeing. We should go to the chat first. And Colonel Morg says, "Which one did the Allies nickname Betty?" It's the Mitsubishi GM4.
No, the Betty was a bigger bomber.
Torpedo as well. They used torpedoes on those as well, didn't they? They slung the torpedoes underneath them, I'm sure.
Yeah, the Betty, if I remember right, was a mid-level bomber.
It was about the same size as
like a B-25.
Yeah, it's about B-25 size. Yeah. But they don't feature in this movie. That they weren't involved in the attack.
This was all naval. So
yeah. But so here we have. So we've seen the Japanese practicing with the torpedoes and practicing that type of an attack. So they're planning the attack, and this guy is called Gandhi. They're talking about, who's one of the naval officers, who's a fantastic strategist, who might have been autistic or whatever, because he locks himself away and from all distractions and closes the curtains. And we're going to see him in a moment. He's a very strange character. Today he would just be on the internet.
Exactly.
This is just him in his man cave on the internet.
I'm busy writing my manga.
Go
Stop it.
away. Go away. I'm just about to level up on Warcraft. Whatever.
And
People
I
don't play Warcraft
believe,
anymore anyway, so.
yeah, but
And
I, I'm sure that there is a point that comes up in this where the depth of the water in Pearl Harbor comes up. Do you
yeah,
recall at what point that comes up?
I think it's, well, he's realizing how clever the plan is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's later on when the American Navy admirals are discussing it and thinking, well, how can it happen here? Because, or actually, no, it was just before when we were watching them in the float plane. They were having
Okay.
a discussion just earlier about it, and we're talking about the attack, a potential attack, because the Americans knew, that it was likely to happen. They just didn't know when and where it was going to happen.
Exactly. Oh yeah. Well, and a little known thing was John Huston was actually making a movie that had a fictitious attack on Pearl Harbor take place around the time
It's
Pearl
so
Harbor
weird, isn't
actually happened. So they had to move the setting for that movie. It's just like,
it?
ooh,
It's so
oopsie.
mental. I mean, I'm not a major conspiracy theorist, but I mean that there's certain things about this whole story, which
Yeah,
but the Japanese are said to have based the attack on the strike of Taranto, not Toronto, Taranto, which was in November 1940. So just a month before this, um, November the 11th, 1940, the British used 21 obsolete biplanes who took off from the British aircraft carrier, the Illustrious, HMS Illustrious,
oh,
and
okay.
they attacked I believe it was the Italians in the Med. I'll check for you though. I might be completely wrong.
You know what?
There
I'm
we
going to
go.
go with it
Yeah,
because
some
it sounds
Italian
good.
naval warships anchored on the port of Taranto. Um, and the events of the next few hours would change the balance of power in the Mediterranean and set the stage for the world-shaking events of December 7, 1941.
There you
So
go.
a lot of people believe that the Japanese were looking at what happened to the Italians. I mean, Mussolini was not pleased at all, obviously, because it opened up a dangerous front in the Mediterranean, because it was a very successful attack, using some scrappy old biplanes.
Yeah.
So it showed the vulnerability of battleships even to that kind of aircraft. So that's what it was based on. But it made a huge difference to the war in the Med with Malta and Sicily.
And it was obvious that the Japanese were paying close attention to. Oh, and we lost Pete. It's obvious that the Japanese were paying close attention to tactics, and in Europe, the Germans were as well with the Blitzkrieg and the Blitz on England. So,
I just
uh,
put myself out there.
oh yeah, no worries.
That was the wrong tab.
To give everybody a time check, we are coming up at 26 minutes and 57 seconds.
Thank
So
you.
just now hit
Yeah.
27 minutes.
And that was, you remember talking about boomerism earlier? Well, I just closed the wrong tab.
Oopsie.
And my copy of the movie stopped at the same time. So I'm a little bit behind you now. What did you say for the timestamp there, Rob?
It is 27 minutes and 18 seconds.
Great. We're about to come up on the radar section of the movie. And radar, I mean, both the Americans and British were developing radar, but I think we gave some of our stuff over to the US Army, and it worked, but it was such a new technology. People
we
didn't trust it.
We didn't trust it.
And,
now, interesting fact about Jason Robards, he was actually in Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941. So he actually it was an eyewitness to the attack.
Yeah.
And then, years later he comes back and is one of the actors in this movie.
Yeah. And the fact about the radar machines in this movie, I think it's authentic equipment.
Well, they're trying to figure out how to get them up on the mountain when they're fighting against the Park
Yeah,
Service. We gotta
and
love U.S. bureaucracy.
this is it, and it's just annoying, isn't it? Because it's still today. It's still the same today, really.
Oh yeah,
But I think Colonel Morg says Brits had the very best carrier names, and he says, "Well, the biplane swordfish class they were."
oh very
I mean,
nice.
I
Good
said
job.
scrap your biplanes, but the swordfish was actually quite a decent aircraft in its day. And he also says, "Oh yeah, I just checked. Swordfish got the Bismarck as well as Taranto, indeed."
Yeah,
Um,
the swordfish getting the Bismarck was something that in history it really impressed me.
mm,
And that was another wake up call that the days of battleships just slugging it out, shooting over the horizon at each other was coming to an end.
it was over. It was absolutely over. And so here we see again Yamamoto with his friend there. He's returned to Japan, to Tokyo, and it's as if they're trying to make out that Yamamoto was against any plan of attack. And you can see the logic in it, because the Japanese never had a hope of defeating America. No way. But they had a
Oh,
chance of destroying the fleet totally
and there
and
you go.
delaying America for about about 2 years. So
Yeah,
they were hoping to consolidate, like negotiate with America, secure the territory and then negotiate with America. But it wasn't possible. So there you saw the president being scratched out of the list of trusted apostles. Did they call them there? I think it was. So
quite interesting.
yeah, that to me is a red flag, to be honest. Major red flag. But yeah, so I think I'm at like 30 minutes and 40 seconds.
Yep. I
Roughly.
just now hit that myself, so we're within a
Yep.
couple of seconds of each
Yep.
other.
Yep. And
So yeah, right now just mainly business, code talk, business.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so this is the guy who's in charge of, it was the Army Air Force, US Army Air Force, wasn't it? And this is
Yeah.
his plan to avoid sabotage, because as we know, there was a huge Japanese population on Hawaii.
Yes.
So what do you do about that? Because the Japanese were um,
Got a great idea, Pete.
loyal to
Here's
Japan.
here's what we'll do. Because we're afraid saboteurs are going to go into the hangars and sabotage the planes. So here's my plan,
Yeah.
right? We'll
Okay.
take all the planes and we'll push
Yeah.
them out onto the airfield and we'll just leave them parked out in the open all the time, right?
That's
Because then
great.
saboteurs can't get to them. Sweet, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they don't like sabotaging the planes when they're in the open.
Yeah. It's like, oh, guys, no. You just want to
Well,
say no,
he
but
was called General Short, so he
well,
was certainly a penny short of a pound or a cent short of a dollar.
yeah.
And the guy was playing golf, wasn't he, when the attack started?
Oh, I don't
I think
have that
it's.
on
I
there.
think it's. I
It
think it.
would not
It's
surprise
in the
me.
movie somewhere, I think. But yeah, played by Jason Robards, who I always just gives. I did not. He always played a baddie in Wild West movies. Jason
Yeah.
Robards. Um,
Let's see, because if I remember right, Short and I think
See those
Short.
helmets. Look at that. I mean, that is just like
Oh
nothing
yeah.
has changed since the end of the First World War.
Oh
Look at the equipment
exactly.
they've got.
Yeah, they look like doughboys.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly like Doughboys. And it's the idea of preparedness that the same thing happened in Europe. The reason the Germans were so successful was because most of Europe was just not prepared for war.
Well, yeah, and while
The,
you had your technical glitch, I mean, that was one of the things
mm,
that I was bringing up
mm,
is the change in tactics. The
mm,
Germans and the Japanese both saw it, said, "Okay,
yep,
we're going
and
to
they moved
adjust.
on
We're
it.
going to do different things,"
This is it.
and you know, it caught the Allies by surprise, and it took time to adjust.
This is it. But I mean, the difference in America is within a very short space of time, they were ready for war because of the size of the nation and the efficiency of the nation. This is this character here is the pilot who we later see flying one of the P-40s.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, and I'm
it's
sorry.
such
I'm
a
admiring those B-17s.
yeah,
The big bombers they're moving in the background with 4 engines are B-17s.
yep, yep.
There are only a handful of them left in the world, and
So we're
they
about to come to the sub part.
oh
I think this is where we're. Oh no, I've jumped the gun on there. Sorry, Ralph.
oh yeah, no
Um,
worries. But I was just going to say there was only a handful of there, or I'm sorry, there is only a handful of them left in the world now. So if you ever get an
incredible,
opportunity
isn't
to
it?
see one at an air show,
Yeah.
I highly recommend going and seeing it. They used to just darken the sky back during the war, and they are a beautiful aircraft.
They are indeed. Jeff Potts says, actually, the U.S. military had not progressed much past the equipment they possessed in World War One. There we go. But it was incredibly, and this story highlights the whole process because this accelerated America's military production, and
Yeah.
they went from where they were to where they, like a year later, in a very short space of time.
Oh, exactly.
And
Only
development was so
months later,
fast.
you had the Battle of
Yep,
Midway,
this is it.
and then they the our grandfathers had to pull together and make massive adjustments.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really studied American involvement in the Second World War in the European theater, other than D-Day, and but obviously the Americans were fighting in Italy with the British before then, and they were active in in and around the European theater and naval actions, and of course the fighting Japanese. Jeff also says by this time, yep. So
Yeah.
the and also the discussion we're seeing on the screen is poignant as well because we've got the traditional old admiral there who is firmly against the new type of warfare,
Yes.
and this is the guy who turns away in the end without authorizing the third wave. Not that
Yeah.
I would have wanted that to happen,
No. Yeah. It turned out better for us, but
Yes,
yeah.
I'm
It
glad he made a mistake.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. But
Um,
yeah,
yeah,
this comes back to like we were talking about arguing over the new tactics.
exactly, exactly. And this is where things really, changed, and you have this face-off between the two admirals, which when you're a Japanese admiral, you have to do that. You have to basically say, "I'm hard," and and
Yeah.
I'll punch you in the face, type of thing. But obviously, Yamamoto steps up and stops the
Yeah.
argument. But
Yeah. Makes the final call,
yeah,
and the opportunity for them was a great one. They when you come down to it, like we were talking about, a large collection of ships that are there in a central area. That Pearl Harbor was a major staging point, actually the major staging point for the Pacific. So success there made a big difference for them.
exactly. So that was Tatsuya Mihashi, who
Oh,
played Commander Minoru Genda, who was the old guy who disagreed with everything. So here we see the return of Fushida, who was the golden boy. He's like the John Wayne for the Japanese.
Yes.
Basically, it's just like John Wayne's just John Wayne and Elvis have just turned up.
Yeah,
In this
exactly.
plane.
Yeah.
And he's got the latest version of the Zero, which has not the entire wing, but the ends of the wings can fold up. I love the names for the aircraft because I used to build model aircraft when I was a kid, and one of the models I liked was the Corsair, which
Oh, of
was
course, there's
affectionately
gorgeous.
named by its pilots the bent wing bastards.
Yes, exactly.
But it was great that they all this ingenuity for storing the aircraft so that the wings would bend and fold, and just incredible. So here we see the oh, look at that! That's a fantastic 3D model of
Oh yeah, the unveiling of the
Wahoo.
plan.
That's incredible. You've got one of those in your den, I think.
Oh yeah, well it's in the back of the trailer. But yeah, I've got a good representation of Oahu out there. And
Jeff,
right there's Pearl Harbor.
There we go. And this is so they're practicing. They now we're doing reconnaissance. So
Yeah.
this is high level reconnaissance. And again, Fushida's doing the reconnaissance, seeing where the fleet is, where the so it is a highly detailed movie. It is another one of those movies where you can really get into the intricacy of what happened prior to the main event. Jeff Post says Yamamoto was educated in the States. In the States, he knew the culture, understand the gravity of the bombing. But he did indeed. He realized that this the Americans would not like. And there's some dialogue in the movie where it's based upon what he may have said, and where he's talking about they may not have liked knowing what they're like. They would not stand still after Pearl Harbor was attacked. They would stop at nothing.
Actually, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
On you.
No, it's fine.
I was going to say this is actually instead of high level reconnaissance, this is their actual training. They found a location that's very similar to Pearl Harbor.
As soon as I saw the yellow flag, I thought, "Hang on, this is the Americans would definitely know they're attacking."
Yeah.
Oh, we're just doing practice runs. Is that okay? Yeah, fine. But this sequence here where low-level flying, which is dangerous today, always been dangerous, but it was to avoid radar as well.
Yeah, well, and I will tell you, I did read that during the production, the guys that were doing the flying were very happy because basically they got to go out, buzz things, do some good old-fashioned stick and rudder and in aircraft where you could open up the canopy and feel the wind and all that. So
feel the wind beneath your
the wind. Yeah, I won't finish that one. The wind beneath your wings. Yes, there you go.
Yeah, there we are.
Jesus, take the stick and rudder.
That's it. Now, so radar was a very, very, very new technology.
And that's a great line there. We know the theory.
Yeah. They'll just get on the phone to technical help.
Technical support. Hey, Ralph, this isn't working. Have you tried turning it off and back on again?
Read the manual. Now, talking about Yamamoto, I mean, we'll get this at the end of the movie, but that end line that he says right at the end is not exactly what he said, but just coming off what Jeff said there, it's more likely that he said something along the lines of a military man can scarcely pride himself on having smitten a sleeping enemy. So it was similar to what it says at the end of this movie.
Well, and the thing is he was tasked with doing a job. And, that is in the military, that's what you have to do. And I have to also say, I love the P-40 because it is also a gorgeous aircraft. Oh, and I do believe these are our two pilots.
There we are. So that's the two pilots who survive. Well, their planes survive.
So that would be Kenneth Taylor and George Welch.
Excellent.
So,
and they are the only two who actually made any significant difference because they're able to get their planes in the air.
Yeah, one of them, cutting ahead a bit. One down 4 aircraft, the other one down 2. So, and they both survived. So that in
Incredible, isn't it?
itself is a massive, massive testament to their skill and luck.
Because there was a lot of servicemen and servicewomen in the U.S. Army, Air Force, and the Army, and the Navy, in all of the sub forces in America who were keen to enter the war.
Well, after Pearl Harbor, I believe there was a good drive, but then we did fire up the draft, and actually, I'm trying to think. I know one of my grandfathers was picked up in the draft. One of Mrs. Ralph's grandfathers was picked up in the draft. My grandfather on my father's side, I'm not sure if he enlisted or was drafted. I've searched back the draft records for mine and her grandfathers, but my grandfather on my father's side was in the Navy, and in the 60s, the U.S. Naval Records Center had a fire, so it's harder to get records from them. You have to actually request them, and they may not exist anymore. So.
Well, I think it's incredible because almost everybody I've spoken to from America has family who have served in the Pacific. I mean, you said yourself that your grandfather's reward was
Oh yes, yeah. Well, while they're talking, yeah, I can share a little bit. It was Mrs. Ralph's grandfather, originally fought in the European theater.
Yeah.
He came in, went into Europe about a week after D-Day, through Normandy, and he gave our youngest son a map where he had made of his trip through Europe. So his entire time there, from Normandy all the way into Germany. And then after VE Day, his reward, Uncle Sam said, "Thank you for your service," packed him up and shipped him over to the Pacific Theater, where, if I remember right, he was on Okinawa. He didn't take part in the invasion of Okinawa, but he was in training to invade Japan. When the atomic bombs were dropped. So
that's the reward you get for being good at your job.
Yes, exactly. It's like, congratulations, sir. You've done a great job. Now we're going to send you over here to where, we're expecting hundreds of thousands of casualties on our side.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, here the tension is building. Everybody knows things are tense.
And this is, again, so we have now Frank Knox. And they're discussing the potential for a Japanese attack. They knew a Japanese attack was on the cards.
Yeah.
So we're at the stage now where Yamamoto's briefing his senior staff and giving the code words. This is it. The code words for the operation, and they've decided the time, Sunday, December 7th, Hawaiian time. And this is leads into the fact that they screwed up the timing, wasn't it? Because they were meant to declare war, and then within the same hour after the declaration, the attack was timed to happen immediately after.
Yeah, and I think there's some debate about that, because I've read that a lot of the Japanese felt that it would be dishonorable to do a sneak attack, so they wanted to declare war beforehand. But by declaring war, they would give away their element of surprise. So, yeah, I think that's one of those that's up in the air.
A bit of a debate over that. Jeff says, I had an uncle on a naval vessel during World War II. He used to show me a pot on his leg where he was shot by a Japanese soldier. came to find out later it was a scar from a boil he had.
We all had an uncle like
We all
that.
had an uncle like that, as long as he didn't ask you to pull his finger.
My grandfather on my mother's side, his war story was he was actually guarding 2 German soldiers, and I don't recall which camp they were at, but they were actually German soldiers there, and he was assigned his rifle, and he had 2 soldiers he was guarding. They gave him 2 rounds of ammunition, and his reply was, "You must think I'm an awful good shot if you're only giving me 2 rounds for 2 guys." So
there we go. We've got this moment here, Ralph, with Yamamoto saying it will be, he studied there. He knows they're a proud people. It would be the most difficult enemy to ever overcome if we went to war with them.
And I think it was before the show that, or no, it was in the beginning. I said, the danger about Americans is when we stop fighting each other and unite against a common cause. And Yamamoto recognized that.
And Jeff says, but he did serve in the Navy during World War II in the Pacific, so his uncle did actually
absolutely serve. Oh yeah.
So this is where we're now seeing them intercept Japanese messages where they know the attack is imminent, and this information gets lost in the network, which is a huge red flag. I personally believe that.
And I think that's fair. I'm on the side of attributing more to incompetence rather than malice, but I think there's a good argument, either way around.
Jeff says, my grandfather was also integral in developing a lot of those airplanes. I'm being British again. During World War II, so much so that he was in the Redstone rocket project after the war.
That's great. You know what? We need to sit down and have a story time at some point. I'd love to hear some of that info.
Well, I was hoping that Jeff could make it on the show tonight, but he's had a very, very busy day. I don't envy him the amount that he's had to do over the past few days.
Well, we will definitely catch up at some point. We appreciate you being here, and and I really appreciate finding out that info. That
in itself is appreciated because, everybody who comes to watch and listen, it's your own time. So we really appreciate everybody who takes an interest.
Absolutely. Well, and it's great to hear these stories because, as you pointed out, everybody did something during the war.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Jeff, the link's in the Discord.
Oh yeah. If you want to come on in.
So here we're now getting the DC head of staff discussing these interceptions, and now they give them over to the army, and this is a weird thing where Stimson says he'll call the president and pass the information on, but that's the telegram information that ends up never getting there in time. So you see, it's gone in the bag, and it never gets there on time. And this is what's read later on. Yeah, and here we have Jeff has turned up. Hello, Jeff.
Hey, I got to mute YouTube here.
Okay. Oh yeah, no worries, brother.
Because you're talking twice.
Oh no. Well, you've popped in at an interesting time, Jeff, because I think, is this near where the intermission? There's a 2-minute intermission in this movie.
Probably not yet. We're at 52 minutes, 35 seconds.
Yeah. So rough seas on the journey there, and the Japanese, well, at the time, very superstitious nation, and this was taken to be an omen, a bad omen.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I stepped on you again. I was just going to say it's not just the Japanese Navy that's very superstitious. You know, it's just an old sailor thing.
Well, this is it. I think all navies and sailors are superstitious, because the sea is so
It's
callous,
very
isn't it? It's
unforgiving.
unpredicting and unforgiving. So yeah, we're about 53 and a half minutes in, and hostile action possible at any moment. So this is the they know attacks coming, but they're just still not knowing where it's going to come from or what shape it's going to take.
Which when you stop and you think about it, Pearl Harbor just was such a logical target. You'd have to.
Well, the entire fleet was there practically, wasn't it? Apart from the aircraft carriers on the day. So
Yeah,
Well, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that was the one thing that fueled a lot of the conspiracy theories around Pearl Harbor was that none of the aircraft carriers, and I think there were only like 3 in the U.S. fleet at that point, none of the aircraft carriers were at Pearl Harbor. And so we lost the ground-based aircraft, but we didn't lose any naval or a sea-based aircraft.
And it's miraculous, because had they been there, even if you can, for example, I think it was Yorktown was repaired and quickly turned around before Midway, but you lose the aircraft. The aircraft are much harder to get more of, and they're the backbone of the carrier.
Well, interestingly as well, the Yorktown, the CVS-10, I don't know if it's the same ship, I think it was actually disguised as the Japanese carrier Kaga in this movie.
Oh, yes. It was brought back in
this movie. And it was unofficially named the USS Kaga for the rest of the movie. But there's a couple of hints to being an American ship because it leaks from the wrong side, and
the
like you say about the Enterprise, it's actually the Kearsarge. Sorry, sorry, you were going to say?
Oh, I was going to say, the Kaga was, and I'm sure I'm massacring the pronunciation, was unusual because it had the bridge on the port side, whereas all modern carriers have it on the starboard side. Plus, when the Yorktown had been refitted by this point to have an angled flight deck for landing, and during World War II, all of the flight decks were straight, so you can kind of see it in some of the shots that they've camouflaged it.
Yeah, and they do a really good job. But I mean, at this time, because I mean, Kelly's Heroes did the same sort of stuff with the tanks and the planes, and you've just got to use what you can find, and they always did a good job with it.
Seeing that by that time they were hysterically short of potentially Japanese Japanese boats in general.
This is it.
My dog's deciding to act up.
Oh, that's all right. Don't worry about it. We've had everything on this show: dogs, cats, parrots, everything. But going back to the point about the planes, there's the
that's the Japanese Zero. Yeah,
and there's the P-40 for anybody watching at home who wanted to know what it looks like. So yeah, and this was the routes that the Japanese took, the 2 waves of attack.
There you go. And you've got the airfields on that. So you got Wheeler Air Base, Hickam, which is out by Ford Island and close to Pearl Harbor, and Kaneohe Air Base. And I apologize to all my Hawaiian friends. I was born in the South. I've lived in the South my whole life. I massacre all of the Hawaiian names. Please forgive me.
But you can see how Hickam was right it was easy target where, you know, if you're going to go up to Pearl Harbor, then Hickam's right there as well. But you've just seen the Japanese admirals receiving the order and then also getting the intelligence back about what is actually in Pearl Harbor. And they had a list of the American fleet that's actually there. One aircraft carrier, but I think did the aircraft carrier leave before the Japanese got there? Because I don't recall any of the aircraft carriers getting.
No, they were all gone. The closest ones were the Yorktown and the Enterprise, and they were both out to sea.
They were both out to sea.
Out to sea, Captain Spock. Cosmetti, I finished off my scotch. I'm out. Oh, I gotta make a run to the liquor store.
Yeah.
Where'd Cosmetti
go? She's there. But there's a bit of a delay, you might notice, Jeff, in the comments with StreamYard. There's a little bit of a delay, the way they appear so there's a lag there. But
I know.
Yeah, I won't. It'll be at least 20 seconds. Oh, there we go. I was going to say it'll be at least 20 seconds before we get her taunting me. Well, I've got my glass of scotch and my cigar, so
yeah. I think I'm having a break from bourbon tonight. I think I had one too many the other night. Oof, man, I love Maker's Mark. I really do.
Yes.
So
I've got to go back to my go-to single malt. The other one was pretty good, but it's got a little bit of more kick than what the other one does.
So the Japanese ambassador to DC, they really did put him in the shit.
Oh, absolutely.
He had to go and give this ultimatum, and you know he was definitely that you didn't want to have his job, basically.
Just go over there and tell them what's what.
Yeah,
that one.
We've just declared war on you. Okie doke.
And I gotta go now. Bye.
See you later. See you for sushi.
Hang
on.
See, I told you.
Still on.
Cosmetti's taunting me in the chat. No.
Oh, no. Let's have a look. Oh, here we go. I have Japanese scotch. Oh.
Yeah.
Hibiki Suntory.
Yeah, there you go. That's
nice one. Nice one. The Japanese do like their strong liquor, definitely.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, me and the family went to the Cognac region in France. We were on holiday down there, and we visited the Hennessy factory.
Ooh,
and then
nice.
The guy there who did the tour said, well, we do a special bottle for the Japanese. And basically, they will just drink an entire bottle of that at dinner. If they have guests around, they will finish off the entire bottle. Because in their culture, that's what you do. You drink a bottle of strong drink between 3 or 4 people in one evening meal. So they're no stranger to that.
They just got the news. They've just picked up Pearl Harbor or Hawaiian radio.
Yeah,
and they just got the news that the carriers are not at the harbor.
Exactly. Now it's a little known fact that I can actually play the Hawaiian nose harp.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes.
I won't do it tonight.
It's where you actually do the tune, but with your nose. So it's like.
And there comes the copyright strike.
There you go. So the Hawaiian nose harp.
Throw it in auto tune.
There you go. Yeah.
So, sorry, Mr. Hawaiian nose harp has lodged the copyright claim against it. So here he is for the night, off to some dinner or something. The intelligence chief, the DC intelligence chief, and this is roughly where the intermission will occur. The Americans have sort of relaxed their position a bit because they really don't know when this is going to happen, and it's as if they're deliberately lowering their guard in a sense, and this is exactly when the attack occurs.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you know, the moves that the Army and the Navy have taken at that point have been wrong. There's just no way to put it other than that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they've set up the Japanese for Navy for success.
This is the Nissan factory, and
now this is on the carrier.
Yeah.
And something that I thought it was brought up in the movie, but I'm guessing not. I must be thinking the remake, because they did get a few things right in the remake. Pearl Harbor, the water is only like 40 feet deep.
It is
in most places. So they had a technical problem with the torpedoes, because normally they would be dropped from the torpedo, dropped from the aircraft. They would hit the water, dive down, and then come up and run at their normal depth until it struck the ship. And very good here. They're recognizing the battleships based on their silhouette
profile. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, they really did their homework, and they're also practicing the bombing runs by running just literally paintings or a folded map. You were talking about so there's a contrast happening in the movie here, isn't it? The Japanese are really full on preparing, sharp as a knife, and the Americans are like, well, let's go to the party. And it's literally the idea that the American armed forces were caught with their pants down. But there's a lot more to this that they're hinting at the same time. You talk about the two pilots that were very successful on the day. Kenneth M. Taylor actually visited the set of this movie.
I hadn't got that.
Yeah. So I don't know whether he was an advisor or anything, but he was a retired colonel in the U.S. Air Force and a brigadier general in the Alaskan Air National Guard.
Oh, very nice.
So there we go.
And I have to point out, because it annoyed me so badly when I watched it, if you watch the remake, if you watch the movie Pearl Harbor, it's not fair to call it a remake.
Reimagining.
Yeah, reimagining. Yeah. It's like, number one, Alec Baldwin doesn't shoot anybody, but
that's an advantage.
They take Welch and Taylor and put them as part of Jimmy Doolittle's bombing crew, and that was one of the moments where I couldn't suspend disbelief, and I'm screaming at my television screen, "No, they're not going to move you from a fighter into a bomber, and then send you over to Tokyo like that. No,
Sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
People don't understand. I think a lot of people don't understand how daring the raid was.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I can't remember how long they were at sea, but I know it was over a month, and they were at sea, no radio communication whatsoever. They could have been picked up by any patrol, and it would have been a complete disaster.
Yeah,
but they didn't. They maintained a certain amount of silence. They struck and got out of there, and it all went according to plan, which is almost unheard of today. So,
oh, absolutely. And the fact that they all knew that it was a one-way trip too.
Yep. So this scene as well, and the tremendously dedicated people, and they do operate as a unit. The Japanese mentality is you operate as a unit, but totally different to the individualistic way of life we have. But I mean, this scene here where he's trying to tell everybody, give them the information. He's visited everybody in DC, and he's getting the brush off from everybody. What's going on there?
Yeah. Well, and now I will admit, we do have a confirmation bias, and part of that comes from the fact that here in the U.S. we've got the two oceans, like we talked about earlier. So we Yanks have a mindset of, well, it can't happen here.
Yep.
Until it does. And then when it does,
and it did.
Coca-Cola in a glass bottle.
Yeah,
Back in
and
the
a hot
day.
dog.
Yeah.
And some Glenn Miller.
Yeah.
That reminds me of that line from, we've done it on your channel, actually, Frankenstein.
Oh, which line?
The, pardon me, boy. Is this the Transylvania station?
Yeah.
Track 29. Can they give you a shine?
Oh, yes. Good old young Frankenstein. Love that movie.
Exactly. It's never gets old. So this lady at the bar has a very 1960s looking 1941 hairdo.
Yeah, that doesn't quite look 41 there.
Like basically, I'm a time traveler. I've come here from 1969.
She's very avant-garde.
Yes.
Yeah, that dress doesn't look 41 either.
I'm not from 1969. I'm totally from 41.
Yeah, I'm just here to catch what's happening tomorrow morning. Don't mind me,
just a
guys.
historical tourist. Yeah. So we're almost up to the point where we have the 2-minute intermission. Where I'll be going to quickly purchase an albatross.
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 What's it taste like? It's bloody albatross flavored. Albatross.
All right, so this should be.
We're at coming up on 1 hour 10 minutes in about 10 seconds, and this is a really good scene. Where everybody's lined up, the pilots are lined up in the corridor. It's beautifully lit. It's a perfect scene, and that's what we're playing right now in the background there, you see. Let's have a play around with the screens here. What can we do here with these screens?
Should be able to throw us to the side.
Nah.
Oh,
but I can do it as an overlay, actually. Hang on.
There you go. Yeah, go with that.
It's an overlay.
Attack of the Boomer.
There we go. See, that's what we're watching right now. In his historic battle against the Russians. So this is because they had for motivation reasons, they didn't bother giving them a prep talk. They just said, "Look, I'm raising the flag that we use when we beat the crap out of the Russians," and that was good enough for them. So, a quiet morning in DC. Obviously, it's not in January. Moving along.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is the place where it's also known as the circus. That's where all the clowns go. Basically.
Hang on one second. This is for Cosmetti.
Yes, Darth Vader hiding in the green room.
There you go.
I think it's Ralph's new electrical cigar device.
I am so sorry. Yeah, I have my mic up a bit too hot. My apologies.
So now it's go time, gentlemen, because they have now intercepted the message that 1 p.m. they're going to give a declaration. So they know the Japanese ambassador is going to give a declaration at 1 p.m. Eastern time. This is Joseph Grew. And I think they're hinting at the inefficiency of bureaucracy here, aren't they, really, as well? See, there's an overburdened, overcomplicated government structure. Because, again, they haven't had to fight a war in a while. And they haven't had to fight a war like this. But like you say, you had the oceans to protect you. We just had a channel. Thank goodness for the channel, anyway. And here we are.
In comes Tojo.
Yeah, this is where they
Oh,
the Japanese general is very much against the idea.
yeah, they're definitely trying to put it out that the military drove this, and giving the Japanese an opportunity to save face in here. So yeah,
But as the
I
point
don't
we've
know
already
how
made,
accurate it was, but yeah, I understand. I understand where it goes.
uno momento per favore, dog issues says General.
Oh,
But yeah, the point is that as we said earlier, the Japanese are incredibly devoted and loyal to their leadership.
yeah,
So much so that, well, what happened after Pearl Harbor, the Japanese citizens or citizenry were rounded up, weren't they, and put in concentration camps.
yeah. That
So not a
was,
good, because that is something. It was a military decision, but at the same time, it completely flies in the face of the Constitution.
absolutely, and that's a black mark on our history, and a terrible decision by Roosevelt. I understand why he made the decision, but it was not. It's not the way that we do things in America.
No.
Yeah, German. That's getting back to the old fart and his stories from his ancestors. I was talking about my grandfather that he was, and this is a lot of this is just family lore. I don't know. I don't know for a fact, but my mother said it was. But when he was involved in a lot of, I want to say top secret stuff, but a lot of, well, maybe it was top secret, and he would get sat down with I think military security, somebody. My mom was telling me a story about how he would have to go around and say that my grandfather was German, or he was, his father was German, and so he had a German name.
Yeah,
and they had to go. He went around calling himself Polish, because his name wasn't Steiner or anything like that. But they would regularly sit him down and interrogate him. Yeah, especially where he was in, the area he was in. So, and I probably have this feeling that's probably also the reason why he got onto the Redstone rocket project, because all those Nazi scientists.
Yeah. Operation Paperclip.
Yep. So, but that's, but it wasn't just the Japanese that, I mean, they weren't interning Americans, but, or they weren't interning German Americans, but I mean, you were under a lot of suspicion if you had a German name.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree there.
Well, the whole of New York must have been interesting, because if they're only Italians, it was...
yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, they did. There was I don't know if it was actually confirmed, but if I remember correctly, the United States government did a deal with the mafia during that time, and to make sure that to keep the the dock, because the mafia controlled the unions and the docks, to make sure that the unions, or to make sure that the docks weren't somehow sabotaged or infiltrated by German spies.
I would actually put a lot of weight behind that, because the mafia, number one, it's going to hurt the mafia's bottom line, and number two, the mafia has a code.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised by that.
Well, here we're seeing, then the tempo of the music indicates as well that things are really heating up, because they're becoming aware that something's going on. They're desperately trying to pass on the communication. And get this, guys, that gentlemen, you'll be interested to know that the film presents a traditional view that the attack was a surprise attack. But December 2011, 10 years ago, a declassified memo showed President Franklin D. Roosevelt was warned on the 4th of December 1941 that the Japanese were preparing to attack Hawaii. He knew it was going to happen.
Well, I've heard that before, but there was a lot of reports coming in apparently that the Japanese were going to attack us here, there, and apparently that ended up coming in as, because of all the white noise, it ended up getting drowned out by all the white noise for all the different reports.
Yeah.
So, because I saw someone, I saw there was actually a YouTube video that went through all the different things and all the different conspiracy theories related to that. And you could easily see where you could say, well, they were warned of it, but then they start presenting all the other evidence that most people don't really talk about. You begin to see how it becomes very gray real quick.
Yeah. Well, and you don't want to be the guy that cries wolf.
Like the guy there who just put the phone down. None of them are willing to stamp pin their colors to the post, are they? So, and they're all like, I don't want to be the guy who takes the heat for this if I'm wrong.
Yep.
So again, this is bureaucratic weakness, and we're coming up on the 2-minute intermission here. So hang on a minute.
Yeah. I got better. Intermission.
This is where you need someone on a Hammond organ going.
And now for something completely different.
I'm a personal fan of the intermission doing the Holy Grail, where about the time you get up out of your seat, it's over. So
this is it. And there's lots of llamas involved. Brian the llama, especially.
So Robin ran away. He bravely ran away.
So this is actually, I was going to mention this at the end, but it's worth mentioning now. I think Jeff's mentioned it already as well. With the Battle of Britain 1969, which has Shamato Kine in it as well. But The Longest Day in 62. Patton in 1970. Patton's a really good movie as well.
Yeah.
This was seen as at the time around 70, 71, the foremost representative movies of World War II, with greater focus on the actual historical events and realism, far less Hollywood style storytelling. So Longest Day, one of my most favorite movies, definitely. And we've done this on that channel. That's the most successful movie on this channel, actually. It's over 250,000 views on that.
Oh, yeah.
What movie was that? I was coughing.
Longest Day from 62.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's proved to be very popular because it's an amazing movie. But yeah, so it's I don't know why it isn't more popular. Tora. I guess it's because it's specifically about one event, which is obviously an event that is a terrible event, rather than D-Day, which was an event where the Allied forces were pushing back. So it's no surprise, I suppose, because it's a painful memory, isn't it?
Yeah.
No one wants to see a really realistic portrayal of themselves getting clobbered.
Exactly.
But if you put it into traditional storytelling, this would be the point where we're at our lowest. We rise up as a nation and overcome.
Yeah, one of my favorites was A Bridge Too Far.
Yeah, which is painful to watch as a Brit.
Yeah.
But an incredible cast, and that doesn't really enjoy the success that it should, but probably the same reason.
And Band of Brothers, that series, that was a very good series. If you're looking for, I think somewhat some accuracy in the actual fighting and what went on at the small unit level.
Yeah, definitely. And they did another series, didn't they, based on the Pacific Theater?
Yeah.
Which was so painful to watch. I think I watched about 3 episodes. I thought, I cannot watch this anymore.
Yeah, it was
Pacific
so
Theater
bad, so crazy.
just so brutal.
I mean, that movie, Hell in the Pacific, you're talking about goodness me, I'm having a mental block now. The director, Howard, not Howard.
Oh, John
I'm having a
Huston.
meltdown. Houston.
There you go.
Which
What, Gandalf?
Yeah, that as well. Who shall not pass?
No, he actually, John Huston played Gandalf in that Bass Rankin. Was it Bass Rankin?
Oh,
Yeah. Well, basically, Houston was brilliant and everything.
Yeah.
Really. But it was Bowman actually who directed Hell in the Pacific. But anyway, that's got Toshiro Mifune in it, who was the quintessential samurai from the Kurosawa movies. The man with no name. But here we go. There's the ensign they're flying there, which is the signal to start your engines on those Mitsubishis.
Yeah,
Mitsubishis.
Yeah, the Japanese Texans.
Yeah.
The World War II naval flight operations just, to me, just seems like absolute chaos. Modern naval aviation is, orchestrated chaos, but during World War II, it seems like just absolute madness.
Yep. Well, people were pushing the envelope to the limit, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
With the technology they had, they used it to the max. So the film took 3 years in preparation, 8 months in production, and it took a year to film it. So this was one hell of a production.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And
sorry, I'm kind of transfixed. We're at the point where the aircraft are getting ready to launch from the carriers.
It's a fantastic scene, isn't it, with the propellers going?
Yes, absolutely.
My dog just came in from outside.
It's all right.
He had to say hello to me.
It's all good, man.
Yeah, the thing about the Zeros is how remarkably agile they were.
Yeah.
And how great they were. But in the end, we built fighters that, and we probably couldn't outmaneuver them, but they could take their shots and keep firing.
Well, and that's the key thing is, even in this, even at this point, the P-40 was more durable than the Zero, because the Japanese had traded everything for maneuverability, to be nimble. So they didn't have sealing fuel tanks. They didn't have armor to protect the pilots. So, if you got guns on a Zero, you had a good chance of taking them down.
That's it. You can see this scene coming up here. It's beautifully lit, and where the planes are taken off at dawn. You'll also notice that the same footage is used 2 times. It's split and then just replayed differently because they didn't have that many planes that could film taking off, so
they kept flying the same plane over.
Yeah.
So this is the same. You're going to see the same shot twice, but it's a beautiful shot in the early dawn hours and fantastic cinematography.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, to be fair, I think the Japanese had 353 aircraft take part in the raid, and the movie only had 29. So, had to stretch it a bit.
Crazy, isn't it? But so
change the decals on those planes quick.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and for this movie, all of these Zeros have they have a single stripe on the aft part of the fuselage indicating they're from the carrier Akage, and they don't have the individual aircraft numbers on them. That way, of course, like you said, you don't have to go swap the decals for every shot. So the same aircraft is, playing the part of 100 different ones. That's a gorgeous shot there.
It is, isn't it? And look at all of those flying in close formation. Beautiful, beautiful. Look at the silhouette of the plane there. And it's incredible that they're not actually Zeros.
And exactly. Every aircraft that you see on here is the same model aircraft just modified for the movie.
Incredible.
So yeah, I give them kudos. Technically, they did an exceptional job.
And that's a beautiful shot there on the way. So the aircraft are on the way now very quickly while the top brass of the U.S. Army are twiddling their navels and other things.
I
This is
found some
General
wind.
George C. Marshall, Chief of Staff, U.S. Army, who's again debating what they're going to do. The members of the cast are actually, most of them were World War II veterans. Martin Balsam, Keith Anders, G.D. Spradlin, all served in the U.S. Army Air Force. James Whitmore was an officer in the Marine Corps. Jason Robards, Bill Zuckert, and the cinematographer that you can thank for that lovely shot, Charles F. Wheeler, were in the Navy during the war.
Yeah,
Wesley Addy.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead there.
A lot of actors were in the military, and a lot of them just didn't say anything about it because that was the thing back then. You didn't go around beating your chest about what you did.
Right. Yeah, you just did your job.
He actually did hard stuff, didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
Today as well, it's the other way around. And when did he come? Yeah, when he's making, you didn't give me money. You gave me an actual dairy. Can you believe it?
Oh yeah. Well, and I remember hearing somebody interviewed Jimmy Stewart. And during World War II, Jimmy Stewart was a B-17 pilot.
Yep.
And apparently he was fairly notoriously difficult to get a good interview from about acting.
This guy is a hero, by the way. This is about the subs. Remember the subs?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
They're all gone. None of them played a part. They were supposed to play a part, weren't they, Ralph? And this is the first one that gets destroyed by a depth charge. This guy was really on his top of his game.
This is the USS Ward.
Yep. So what did you find out information about the subs, Ralph?
I did not. What's interesting is the Ward was a destroyer that it was a 4-stack destroyer that was basically left over from World War I or retrofitted after World War I. So none of them. That's the one which is was a wreck, and people have dived down there to see the wreck of this one. That was the crew were killed instantly when the depth charge went off. In actuality, the Ward fired cannons at it, hit it right around the shoot. I forget the section of the sub. But after they fired the cannons and hit it, they then went and got it with depth charges too. And when they found the wreck, they confirmed.
Well, that's a Wicks.
Oh, there it is.
This is it.
Yeah.
Well, that's a Wicks class destroyer, USS Ward, exactly, and attacked and sank the Koyoteki class. I'm probably mispronouncing that.
Wow, did you slaughter that one?
Harbor.
Yeah, you know what? I was telling him before we started, he's got
I'm usually quite good, but that one really threw me there.
Yeah, you got a hick from the deep south in the US and a limey, so
yeah. I'll put on my full samurai. Koyoteki.
No, you can't do that. Can't go full Belushi.
So basically, the Americans fired the first shot.
Yes.
On the famed Pearl Harbor. That's the point. They fired the first shot.
Hey, at least we got one.
Yeah. So there's the irony. You guys fired the first shot, but the subs just did not play a part. They were supposed to go into the harbor.
Yeah,
and
I think they were like harbor nets that they had up, and that I think founded them. I seem to remember that.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what role they were supposed to play other than just general chaos.
Well, I think the mini subs, I think the mini subs, the ones that did get through because they could get past. I think one of them did unload a torpedo. I don't know whether it hit or not.
Oh, okay.
I'm doing this from memory, but I think they did unload one torpedo, but I'm not sure whether it hit. So they did get into the I think they did get into the actual port
You are correct. There is one that got in there. Got in on the north side of Ford Island, fired on and missed the seaplane tender Curtis, and then missed the destroyer Monaghan on with the other one, and then the Monaghan promptly sunk it. So, yeah, the midget subs were a failure.
Totally. Well, it was part of the attack, which it was probably the most. Well, it was a complete failure. That part of the plan,
but it was daring.
Yeah, this is where the Japanese were at. What is it? 1 hour 33 and a half. Japanese have just seen the sun rays coming through the clouds, and take that as the sunburst is a good sign.
Oh, I don't like that keying in there. That one doesn't translate well, but the aerial shots are wonderful.
They are incredible. But yeah, the Japanese submarines were supposed to play the major role in the attack. They were supposed to scout and penetrate the defenses, and obviously release torpedoes if the planes failed.
Oh my gosh!
And they were supposed to
can't read the handwriting. Sorry,
I'm telling you, red flag, red flag. I like the sitar in the background. It's like, no, you got that wrong. It's Japanese music. Sitars are Indian.
Oh yeah, and I apologize.
Betty's still listening. She can confirm that a sitar is an Indian instrument.
That is correct.
But yeah, the subs actually was supposed to station itself. One of the pilots of one of them, unfortunately for the pilot, his submarine had basically drifted off course completely, and but anyway, they were a tremendous failure. That's all we need to know. They're picking up Hawaiian radio again. It's the nose harp hour.
Yeah. And notice they're using Honolulu radio, so they're using the radio stations to help guide them in and correct their course.
Yeah, we can't hold Honolulu radio liable for this though. Now we've got Major Truman Landon, U.S. Army Air Corps. So, where was the U.S. Air Force at this point?
The Air Force didn't exist yet. At this point, the Air Corps was controlled by the Army, kind of like how the Navy and the Marines are. So the Air Force didn't become its own branch until I believe 1947. So through the entire war, the Army had control of the land-based aviation.
Yeah, that's a biggie that people don't realize when they watch World War II.
Yep.
Movies. They don't realize that
it was the U.S. Navy Air Corps.
Yep.
Or U.S. Navy Air Corps, U.S. Army Air Corps.
Yeah, USAAC.
Yeah.
Now the Navy did have its own aviation wing at that point. Navy and Marines both did. So, I apologize to all my crayon eating friends in the Corps, but all Marine pilots do go through naval aviation training, the exact same courses. So
let's look at the Japanese major aims for the attack. It wanted to destroy the important American fleet units, preventing the Pacific Fleet from entering or interfering with Japanese conquest of the Dutch East Indies and Malaya, and allow Japan to conquer and secure those resources. So their targets were to sink as many of the destroyers as possible, but they did also want to take out the aircraft carriers Enterprise, Lexington, and Saratoga. But as we know, they were out of maneuvers when this attack occurred. But the approach and the attack, as we're seeing right now, was picked up by the radar operators. But well, don't worry about it. He must be in the mafia. Hey,
yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Forget about it.
Forget about it. And but yeah, the radar was, they thought they were misinterpreting the signals as the American bombers. By the way, the scene where they talk about they can't put the radar up because of the forestry officials is, if you're familiar with Oahu, is an Opana Point. So there you go. Narrowest and most inaccessible peaks on the island. So it's quite hard to get up there anyway.
Yeah, I absolutely believe it. I have never been to Hawaii. Out of all my ridiculous travels, I hear it's lovely.
I actually went to the Pearl Harbor when I was in high school. I went to the Pearl Harbor Memorial, and I will tell you this: while it's not, it's not what I call a real interesting site. It is it's not a very interesting site until you look down into the water.
Yeah.
Right.
And it both was a sobering moment and kind of frightening, because below you could, if I remember correctly, you could see like the big, there's like a big, the couple of, I think it's the Arizona that they did, like these round structures in the water, and it looks like this monstrous beast in the water about ready to rise up and to eat you. That's the one thing that went through my mind. But it is sobering once you look down into the water. It really is kind of, I want to say creepy, but that's the one thing that really struck me. But
absolutely.
It was interesting to see, and there's a lot of reverence there for what went on. And of course, I was a kid. That was my impression. So you get older, you start getting a little bit more thoughtful, and you start becoming a little bit more thoughtful and reverent about it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But there are people who that's their graves, is those ships, because they can't get them out.
Yeah, I mean, they've been down and trying to get as many out as possible. Yeah, but there's still remains down there.
Yep.
Well, and that's it. I believe it's 900 and something that went down with the Arizona, and a lot of the survivors from that day, after they pass, their ashes are interred in the Arizona. They return to be with their crew. So it's exactly. I've not been able to visit it, but I absolutely can understand.
Well, the Arizona, as you already probably know, still leaks up to 9 quarts of oil into the harbor every day.
Yep.
That's referred to the tears of the Arizona, or the black tears. This scene here is based on a true story. Well, like most of the movie, it's so historically accurate. This is based on a real woman who gave flying lessons. So she was actually flying around when the Japanese approached. A woman called Cornelia Fort. That's a great name, isn't it? She was only 22 years old. Her plane, an interstate cadet, as you can see there, was chased and strafed during the attack. And then landing at a nearby civilian airport with a student on board. She later joined the Women's Auxiliary Ferrying Service. In March 1943, she died in a mid-air collision near Abilene, Texas. She was the first WAF-S pilot to die on active duty. Can you believe that? What a story.
Oh, well, and I'm just trying to imagine being in a little civilian biplane like that, being surrounded by Japanese fighters. Yeah, that
must have been a hell of a pilot.
Yeah, because that would be about as terrible in a position you could be in.
Yeah,
and and then to go on and be in the Wasp that ferried the fighters and bombers over.
Yep.
It sadly died when she was only 24, but she must have been one hell of a pilot to survive that day.
Well, and that comes back to like what we were talking about. Everybody did something during the war.
This scene with Yamamoto just closed eyes in sort of meditative mood. There's beautiful scenes across Oahu here. And you can just see that it's just like a tunnel, isn't it? You got the
Oh,
two
yeah.
ridges that run from north to south, and then somewhere across there's the pineapple dole factory or farm.
I actually visited that too.
Yeah.
And could you imagine if you were on the northern tip of Oahu when they first came overland and then made their split?
Yeah.
It's basically they came in from the north, split up, and did basically a pincher maneuver toward Pearl Harbor. You know, seeing a fleet of aircraft like that coming over.
Well, this is it. And you're going to see the scene where the Japanese workers are working in the fields as the planes come across. So there we go. They can see the harbor from here, from south. This is where they circle around and start their attack run. Because Matty says, that's a terrible name. How do we keep people from calling you corny?
Probably learn to fight.
And then she says, pineapple dolls? I love that music there. That reminds me of the music that they made for Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. It's another really good movie. That so here's Yamamoto opening his eyes. He's just been told the attack has started. In other words, they're right on target now. And this is the way it pans out, like to indicate the inevitability of they've just awoken that sleeping giant.
And at that point, there's nothing that they can do.
That's it.
That would be the Arizona with the mast of the Tennessee behind it.
Yeah, so as the ships get destroyed, obviously we should sound off which ships are getting destroyed. Obviously the Arizona took the worst of it.
Yeah, without a doubt. The sinking of the Arizona, well, you know, when it happens.
There you go. Couple of minutes to 8, gentlemen, on the watch.
That's it. And the attack begins at 7:58 a.m.
And you're going to see something very peculiar, which is actually standard military practice, that the band starts playing the national anthem, the Star Spangled Banner, and even when they're under attack and they're still playing, it's like a British thing to do, really. It's like you're being like us. It's, you know,
like I said, the Navy orders. The Navy is all about tradition. Like,
see, he's out in his +4s there. Off to play golf, but yeah. So even while they're under attack, they've got to keep playing it. The military code is, it's got to be played through regardless of any circumstance. And once you start, you've got to finish it. There's the scene where they're going over the fields there and the Japanese workers in the fields.
Yeah, by the pineapples.
So the conductor frantically accelerates the pace. So he's looking for, because he's got to follow military protocol and get himself to a point where they can get at least through the first few bars and then run for cover. But you have to complete so much of it when you've started playing it. You cannot. So it's just like, it starts off like that and it's like
yeah. Well, and actually I believe all bases still do that.
Yeah. So they're about to fly the flag, and here come the first attack group of Zeros. Are these are actually look like the
these are Zeros. Yeah.
Well, obviously Texans, but made a lot of Zeros.
Yeah.
It's a great shot, that as well. And this is a beautiful shot. This is like they're just this is the kind of thing you would get in a British military film, you know?
Yeah.
Just standing there while bang. Get that man.
Yeah, exactly. You're at attention, can't go running.
This is it. And that's a great shot there, because this is real. It's not CGI. This is real low flying.
Yeah, exactly.
And they were really creative with the camera work here as well, shaking the camera and to portray the explosions.
Yeah, and it's just
Jeff
utter
has
shock.
renamed himself Mr. Useless Trivia. I thought that was my job. Alert all commands. So here we go. This is no drill.
And then enter coming the Kate torpedo bombers, about to make their first runs.
There we are.
Now, the way that the ships were berthed in Pearl Harbor, you had basically a battleship on the outside and a battleship on the inside. So, they could hit them with the torpedoes on the outside, but the inside ships were somewhat protected.
Yeah. So is this the Arizona taking the first hits there, or what was the first ship?
I would have to look. Actually? Let me see. Which one was the first one to be hit?
It says the first wave was the primary attack. Battleships the third, the Type 91 aerial torpedoes, and
blah blah blah.
So here it's got the first wave. Doesn't say.
Yeah, I'm looking to see. I don't see the order that they were hit either.
I've got the order that we aligned in. The California was just south, and then you had the Maryland, Oklahoma, the Tennessee, then furthest towards the back end of the harbor, you had the Arizona, and then the Nevada. That scene there is really well done. They're really trying to portray the chaos and the explosions, where the way the camera's shaking. It's really documentary style, and I think that for the time this movie was done, that's excellent work. And you've got obviously a zero shot there. Actually, that's a torpedo bomber.
Oh yeah, no, that is one of the dive bombers. Yeah. That's one of the Val dive bombers.
Guy's about to break the fourth wall here. There, that guy there. He's like smiling as he runs out the corner. Terrible.
I'm not going to look at the camera. Not going to look at the camera. Not going to look at the camera.
You want to hear a story about a guy who actually got a Medal of Honor for his actions on during Pearl Harbor?
That's the guy we're going to see later on in the movie who was the went out and used the machine gun.
Yeah, the black guy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
His name is his name is Doris Miller, but they called him Dory. He was a mess attendant, second class.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we're going to see him run out and grab the machine gun. And we were saying before the show, he didn't even have to do that because he was a mess attendant.
Yeah.
But he was a real American.
Hadn't been trained on it.
He was ordered. Yeah. He was ordered to help load the number 1 and number 2 Browning aircraft guns. It doesn't say why he went to fire them, but he was the guy firing them. Of course, he didn't shoot anything down. I don't think anybody. I think there was only one plane that actually got shot down, and I think it was one plane got up and managed to shoot down one of the Zeros.
No, there were five planes that got up, but only 2 of them actually did anything, and they got a total of 6 aircraft.
Well, we're going to see John Finn towards the end of the movie, who did actually manage to shoot down a Japanese plane, who was given the Medal of Honor, and he for valor beyond the Call of Duty. You'll see him towards the end of the movie, but here's the attack on Hickam.
Yeah,
and that fantastic strategy of lining all the planes up so they can be shot easily.
Well, it's courtesy.
Yeah.
Dude, don't scatter them around. Don't scatter them around.
Yeah.
Messy.
Yeah, just all lined up there.
Be harder for us to clean them up later.
Well, the P-40 crashing in the flight line, where you're about to see there, was actually an unplanned accident. It was obviously they're all full. That's a great stunt there with the gas tank. It was a full-size life-size mock-up, but it had a gasoline engine, and it's steered with wheel brakes. So essentially, what happened was the stuntmen were ready to rehearse it, and they knew which way to run, but the plane started going the opposite direction and lift off the ground to turn left, and the explosives that were in the another plane that was supposed to hit were detonated right on the spot. So the stuntman didn't really have enough time to get away. So they actually run it. They are actually really running for their lives when you see
Oh
that
yeah,
scene. That's why it looks so convincing.
Method acting.
Yeah,
yeah.
and
Of
it
course.
was interesting. It was filmed from loads of shots, so they could reuse it. So we've got Dean Martin's cousin flying this bomber.
Is he singing?
He's he is actually singing "When the Moon Hits Your Eye,"
That's
like a
actually not.
big piece
That's
of
actually
pie.
not a bad
And then
impression.
again, don't work
That's
in.
amore.
Yeah, and now this is also they actually, this was a real event. One of the B-17s had starboard side gear would not
It
come down.
is. Now there's a
So
famous shot, isn't there, of the one of the B-17s? Half of it's gone, but there's the yeah. I think you get the actual footage in the movie of the one landing with only one landing gear.
yes, yes, you do.
That's one of the best lines ever. Tell those damn fools to stop shooting. That's where Americans.
Yeah, and that's it.
Just to let you know, one of those. Just like I said, it's damn fine. Time to enter a war. The B-17 here is. I don't know whether it's the one. It's a beautiful shot there. There is one actually at the Yankee Air Force Museum in Ypsilanti, Michigan.
Yeah, there
Is it
are
Michigan or Michigan?
Michigan.
And
Right.
that's where I'm from, actually.
Ah, I thought I noticed there when you had the way, a bit of a little bit.
Another beautiful thing about the B-17s is those things, they were called flying fortresses for a reason, because they
Then
took
they could take
immense
anything, couldn't
damage.
they? Couldn't they? Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's an interesting time to be alive in Michigan at the moment, Jeff.
Yes, it is.
So
I don't live
my
far from the Oxford.
yeah,
Oh,
In
yeah.
fact, my parents used to own flower shops. I used to actually deliver in Oxford and Lake Orion,
Yeah.
all those areas.
So this is the point where obviously it's full scale bombing of not just the warships, but Hickam Airfield, and I don't know which ship was getting attacked now, but I think it's the. Is it the? It's not the Arizona, is it?
no. Oh, here we go. This is
It's when you see the bomb drop. That scene there where, and the guy looks up. Is this the California? Oh, here we go. Here's Dory.
yeah, here's Dory coming out to man
Here
the gun.
He comes. Yeah. So when we say Dory, we don't refer to one of the dwarves from The Hobbit. This is the African American mess attendant who was Seaman First Class Dory Miller, and he was on. So this is the West Virginia that's getting attacked right now. First African American to be awarded the Navy Cross, second only the Medal of Honor, and he never had any training, and fired unattended machine gun at the Japanese aircraft until he was out of ammunition.
Yeah, he was also the heavyweight boxing champion on the ship. He stood 6 feet 3 inches tall, weighed over 200 pounds. He later attempted to aid the ship's wounded captain, Mervyn Bennion, but the captain, true man, refused to leave his post. And I'm looking at Dory, and he looks like he could mess you up pretty bad.
Yeah. Maybe you just need to put Bon at the start, so it's Bon Dory.
Yeah. But yeah, he's an imposing looking guy.
So is this is listing it degrees. So this is abandoned ship now for, I believe that was the West Virginia. I might be wrong. So this is a famous line of, "You waiting for confirmation? There's your confirmation." There's that scene there. There's the devastation. And that was the Oklahoma in the middle there of that shot. Yeah. So, but like we were saying earlier, although it was a devastating attack, in short order, because of the shallowness of the harbor and the efficiency of the operation, a lot of those ships were back in fighting order very quickly afterwards. And of course, none of the aircraft carriers were damaged. So here we go, gentlemen.
Yeah.
This is the moment where the Arizona is about to be completely destroyed.
Yeah, this one, when they hit the Arizona, they managed to set off the munitions on the ship.
This is it. That's an incredible shot there, where the guys just watching the bomb drop onto the ship, and of course the shockwave from the Arizona going up, the whole of the harbor was hit by the shockwave because, like you say, they hit the ammo.
And, even though that was a miniature, that's a pretty fair representation of what the actual explosion was.
This line from the head of the Admiralty.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, from Kimmel.
Jimmy Kimmel?
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been merciful if it killed me. So it's a stray Japanese bullet went through the window of the Admiral's office and just missed him. Admiral Husband E. Kimmel. Imagine having husband as your first name.
And there we go. The incoming reports. Basically, for the Japanese leadership, they're just sitting and waiting for the counterattack and news.
Yeah, and so there's the report there. Better than we dreamed. Okay, so the result was, at this point, they'd managed to destroy all of their battleship targets, but obviously none of the aircraft carriers.
I think one of the ships tried to either get out of the harbor or tried to block the entrance of the harbor. I can't remember which.
We're going to see this. Exactly. We're going to see that in just a moment, because they were trying to make an escape and they realized if they got bombed, they would block the harbor. So it was beached. I think it was.
Yeah, it was. They got hit while they were trying to get out of the harbor. Yeah, and they beached it to save the ship and prevent from. And you're correct, also to prevent from sinking and blocking off the
Nevada, I think.
I believe you're correct. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the picture of the Arizona, I'm just going to put that up in a second. I'll copy that over. But yeah, here's a picture of the Arizona after the attack.
Yeah.
So absolutely devastated, lying on its side there. So here we go back to the airfields, and and you're going to see that scene where the dummy P-40, right? There's a load of these shots. Now, I believe that's the plane that they filmed from several angles, and here's the two pilots.
Yeah, Ward and Taylor.
Yeah, this is a great shot. This. And throwing your cigarette away like that, you learn that in drama school.
Yeah.
That's like, hey, what the hell's going on here? I'm going to throw my cigarette butt away dramatically.
And I can't remember. One of them got in trouble because they just basically run out to their aircraft
Yeah.
One of them got in trouble and didn't get a commendation because he just took off. They're like, "Oh, you didn't have clearance." So,
Yeah,
there you
that
go.
surprised me.
There we go. So this is it. Watch. They are actually running for their life. Like they're like basically this bit here now. It's like they don't know which way it's going to go. What it gets flipped, and this is why it looks so convincing because it was actually real. None of this was not planned to go this way. Okay, so you've seen it from another angle already, but you see the propeller spinning up as well.
Yeah.
And
Oh gosh, yeah.
so back in the day where I think this is the same shot, but we're seeing it from a different angle. So it's listing like that. And then it comes round and you literally see the stuntman running like shit in the opposite direction. The truck just been hit. Because Matty's got this big thing with pineapple dolls happening at the moment here. I don't know what's going on. Tony! I missed this so slack. Tony, there's a link in the Discord if you want to come in, mate. There's still another 20 minutes of the movie left. Get yourself in.
What's interesting, I can't remember which one they hopped in either. I can't remember if it was Taylor's or Welch's Buick.
Yeah.
And yeah, they said that they were basically doing 100 miles an hour at some point, trying to get to the airfield where they could get into their fighters and take off.
Yeah. Well, these are the P-40s they used in the movie, though. They were actual P-40s, weren't they?
Yes.
They were,
yeah, these are actual P-40s.
Yeah. Because when he's Tony, you're late. Clap hand. Well, excuse Tony because he's on the other side of the world. Well, from me anyway. It's Nevada. She's making a run for the sea.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
So Fushida wants to bomb the Nevada. If we sink her there, she'll block the channel for months. There's two channels. I think the south and the north. He says it's midday on Monday, so I should be working. Oh well.
Yeah,
Okay.
you know.
No worries.
Just tell the boss that Ralph said it's all right.
Yeah. So here we go. And the guy who's the captain, the actor playing the captain of the Nevada, is like the most stoic person ever. Can you see the orange and red stripes on the tail fin of that Zero? So that must have been the command craft paintwork markings.
I'm trying
like
to
the red and orange stripes on the tail.
Yeah.
Tail fin.
I was trying to see. I've only caught it with
right.
the single red stripe is supposed to be the Akiga.
What do you think of the miniatures then, Jeff? Do you like that was seen from the aerial shots? Or Ralph, whichever.
Yeah, I'm actually not watching the movie. I'm just listening.
Oh,
that's fair enough. Now you say that.
So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the
miniatures are great, man. But they are pretty good. I mean, for the day, they're pretty good. I mean, this is pre Industrial Light and Magic, isn't it? So
yeah. So no,
those are some effective free burns there.
Yeah,
I've seen
the stuntmen on this are just properly like god level stuntmen.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
Tony.
Hey, Tony.
All right, mate.
Hey.
Tony, meet.
I've still got
Ralph already. Tony, meet Jeff. Jeff, meet Tony.
Hey.
Hey again, Jeff.
Hey, if you want to jump in, Tony, we are at 2 minutes. Or I'm sorry, 2 hours 2 hours 7 minutes.
Ralph, you're obviously drunk. He's here already.
No. I mean, if he wants to watch along.
Sorry, mate. Sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't have enough scotch to get drunk. I'm really disappointed.
How can you have not enough scotch?
Unfortunately, I haven't replenished, so I only had one good drink.
Yeah. So what are we? We are at just past 2 hours 7 minutes, and there's about 10-15 minutes left to go of the movie. But now we're starting to see the recovery operation taking place. The sailors are abandoned ship. They're getting evacuated out, and pretty much finished the. I think it must be already be the second wave by this stage.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
So
mean,
has the
the whole
USS Nimitz come back in time yet?
Yeah. Well, we're
no.
talking about a lot of this stuff was reused. A lot of the planes were reused for that.
Yeah,
movie.
it was. Yeah.
This is a beautiful scene. This sequence coming up. Now, I think it's a great movie, but I think this sequence coming up was a little bit over long. But this is the dogfight between. But I know why, because this is one of the few successful actions on the day by the American forces, and this is the scene that Ralph you were talking about, where the two P-40s took down a whole load of Zeros.
Yeah, basically, one of the pilots got four aircraft down by the end of it. The other one got 2. But notice they're coming in high, so they see the aircraft below them. They come zipping in, and they're going to make their run. The advantage of the P-40 was speed, and basically slashing attacks. Come in, take your shots, zoom away before they can do anything, and then repeat.
They're a good plane.
It was a decent aircraft. I mean, they were quite well matched, but I think the P-40 was possibly had more power for acceleration in altitude.
Yeah, they had a speed advantage. Wasn't in level flight. It wasn't a huge one. I think they said, I think I read 30 to 40 miles an hour or more, but in a dive, the Zero couldn't come anywhere near it.
Good old American muscle car know-how.
It is literally, yeah. This is it. That's a beautiful scene there. This dogfight.
Yeah. But yeah, he's getting. Don't turn. Don't turn. Dive away. You start turning, you're dead.
Is it really obvious to me to say they just don't make movies like this anymore?
True.
No.
This is
true.
I mean, 4 years it took to make the movie.
The fact they got the Japanese to film all the Japanese stuff and the Americans filmed all the American stuff was brilliant.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and just like we haven't really touched on it, but nowadays all of this would be done CGI, whereas this was actual stick and rudder guys that were veterans. Some of them actually flew in the war. Some were civilian pilots. And they're all out there just having a blast.
Yep, and it still makes sense today because it's the real thing. If that had been CGI, it would have already looked dated. It's 51 years old, this movie, and it's still, this sequence is still spot on. Obviously, you've got the little mergers there where you get the the close-ups.
I think the thing is, it doesn't matter how long it's been. Like I spent my 40th birthday at Pearl, and you feel it. You feel the history. You feel the horror of it, and it's weird. There's a friend of mine who I went with. He was taking photos of me, standing around and stuff, and he kept on getting me. Go, why aren't you smiling? And I went, I'm at a war memorial. It's meant to be, you're meant to have honor and respect, not grinning like an idiot.
Yeah,
he couldn't understand that. He's like, oh yeah, but I went, the USS Arizona is beneath this, you idiot.
Yeah, did you look over the side?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just talking about that. Or not just talking about it, but I talked about it earlier. It's like I said, it's like this monster there beneath the surface of the waves.
Yeah, bits of oil coming up every now and then.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we've noticed, like, there's no music. It's just all.
This is it. We've had like 25 minutes of action now.
Yeah.
And there is next to no music because it's obviously
there went the PBY.
It's so intense you don't need it.
It is, and because of the events it's portraying, you don't want to sentimentalize anything, and this is why it's regarded as one of those movies where it steers away from traditional Hollywood schlock, and you've got like they're trying to be sincere and realistic and respectful.
No Ben Affleck trying to take down a Zero with his lightsaber.
Yeah.
No.
Or or John Wayne up in there. I'm going to come around on us 12 now.
Well, I kind of look at 70s as being, I wouldn't say the golden age, but they relied, because they didn't have the effects, they relied very much on pacing and writing.
Yeah.
And acting.
Realism.
The acting wasn't so great in many instances, but the pacing and the timing was, and the writing was always very good.
Yeah, Finn, by the way.
Yep.
This is Chief Ordnanceman John Finn, stationed at Kaneohe Naval Air Station, and he set up a 50 caliber machine gun mounts despite being wounded several times, fired back at the strafing Zeros during the attack wave. He managed to hit several of them. He shot down one led by combat leader Lieutenant Fusata Ida. Finn was later awarded the Medal of Honor for valor above and beyond the call of duty. And we have a picture of him here, which I should get up in just a moment here. Where are we? And here he is there. There's the gentleman there. There is Mr. Finn with his Medal of Honor.
Well, and I want to bring up here this where he shot down Ida, and Ida crashes into the hangar. This was before Japan had introduced kamikaze. It came down to he knew there was no way he could get back to his ship.
Yeah.
So, rather than being captured and
interrogated
or die, and interrogated, he chose to crash into a target.
Oh, we're getting it.
Whoop.
Who's that? Well, there's the copyright strike.
If they get it off that, then
to be honest, don't. No, it won't. Don't worry.
The Japanese ambassador probably needs a change of underwear right now.
He does, really, and I appreciate the fact that he sufficiently shames the Japanese ambassador by just not looking or anything. He just maintains that position because it is shameful. And but then the Japanese had a track record by this stage of their entire campaign was like this. That this is part of Japanese warfare. Actually, the surprise attack is part of Japanese warfare.
Which that surprise attacks are one of the core elements of any type of warfare.
That's it. Yep.
You don't announce. Your odds are much better when you don't announce to the enemy what you're doing.
Oh, exactly.
So,
it's terribly unsporting, though, isn't it?
It reminds me of the. I think it was the 7 Years' War over in Europe, but here in the Americas, it was the French and Indian War.
Yeah.
And the Brits were aghast that they lined up to fight and nobody came out from behind their tree, and so they used the tree to shoot them.
Yeah,
I thought that was utterly barbaric.
Would you oblige us by standing in front of our bullets, please?
So they got mowed down. Of course, the Americans are standing around, kind of like off to the sides, going, no.
And here's where they make the decision not to launch the third wave.
That's it. Sunk 4 battleships, heavily damaged 3 more, he says. And then, Sir, Rear Admiral Yamaguchi's carrier has signaled attack group ready for takeoff. And then his reply is, as he hands the clipboard to his adjutant, or ensign, whichever, he then says, unfortunately, American carriers were not at Pearl Harbor. Since we don't know where they are, we can't use our limited supply of fuel to look for them. And we must not forget that enemy submarines will be searching for us. And we have been lucky so far.
Let's not push it.
Yeah. This is it.
And when you think about it, I guess I can understand he's thinking defensively. He's thinking we've still got to get back to Japanese waters.
Yeah.
So, but with hindsight, Yeah, it's one of those things where you say, definitely should have, but
Yeah.
there were a lot of unknowns then.
The ships lost or damaged was the Arizona, Oklahoma, West Virginia, California, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, and Maryland, and also the Utah, which was apparently a total loss. They took out the cruisers Helena, Raleigh, and Honolulu. And then the destroyers, they took out the Cassin, the Downs, the Helm, the Shaw, and of course, like 5 auxiliaries, the well, I can't even pronounce it. Vestal, Curtis, whatever, can't pronounce that either. And then a yard floating dock.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, basically the entire fleet, apart from the aircraft carriers and a couple of destroyers, I think were about. But the Japanese must have thought we've done what we needed to do, and obviously the helmsman shouts "Dozo, dozo" as they pull away, and yeah,
that's it. Yeah, and they come out on the Japanese side. They lost 4 midget submarines. The 4 midget submarines sunk, 1 midget submarine grounded, 29 aircraft destroyed, 74 aircraft damaged. So 64 people on the Japanese side killed and 1 sailor captured. So, just an absolute rout.
Absolutely. But the amazing thing is that 6 months later was Midway.
Yeah. And out of all those ships that were sunk or damaged, I think the Arizona and the Utah were not able to be returned to service. They were total losses. There's one more. There was a third one that could not. But because there was no third wave, they had the facilities where they could repair and return the ships to service. Arizona, Oklahoma, and the Nevada was returned to service.
Yeah, Utah was considered a total loss.
Yeah.
Yes. So Marshall's message there finally gets through right at the end. Be on alert accordingly, and that finally gets through after the attack is finished. And here comes the aircraft carrier. Is this the Yorktown?
No. Yeah, I'm not sure which one this one is.
I'll look to see if there's Captain Kirk at the bridge.
Yeah, this would be either the Enterprise or the Yorktown.
Yeah, it's definitely Lexington because you just mentioned the Lexington.
The interesting note is that after the attack, they expected that the island was going to be invaded. So the troops, they had troops stationed around the island waiting for an invasion that never came.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the Japanese had already gone back to their own waters.
Yeah. They had no clue that it was just simply a naval. That's the other reason why I considered that they didn't know, because if that were the case, they knew it was only a Japanese strike, that they wouldn't have invaded. So they were on guard for an invasion. Yeah, I think that's the Arizona right there.
That is the Arizona, yes.
So there's a memorial. And the Black Tears.
80 years later, she still leaks oil.
This is it. And this is where they're giving him as you were saying before there, the amount of devastation they've caused. And this is Yamamoto's final speech to his staff. But according to the American radio, Pearl Harbor was attacked 55 minutes before the ultimatum. And I can't imagine anything that would infuriate the Americans more.
Well, Twin Towers.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
is to awaken a sleeping giant and fill him with a terrible resolve. Now, that last end there, with the last line though, which gets subtitled at the end there, is similar to what he did say. He didn't probably say those exact words because it was famous from the book that was written by Gordon Prang, which the movie was based on. But it's likely that it was slightly different what he said, and it was probably more along the lines of a military man can scarcely pride himself on having smitten a sleeping enemy. It's more a matter of shame simply for the one smitten. I would rather you made your appraisal after seeing what the enemy does, since it's certain that angered and outraged, he will soon launch a determined counterattack. So his warning earlier in the film about attacking the US that begins with, if I am told to fight, I shall run wild for the first 6 months, is actually largely accurate. So that means that the Japanese knew they could cause havoc for the first 6 months, but after that it was a pre-gotten conclusion that because of the size of the United States and the resources of the United States, it was an inevitable conclusion. So it begs the question, why were the Japanese in an impossible position where they felt they had to attack?
Back in the time, they, both the Germans and the Japanese considered, America to be weak because we were a free nation. We had sort of, I wouldn't say riotous, lifestyle, but we enjoyed life and all that other stuff. So they kind of considered that what's the word I'm looking for? Degenerate.
Yeah.
And
degenerate, decadent.
Both decadent. That's it. And both of them had very martial societies, and they figured that one attack and they'd scare us into submission, and they people who lived here knew that because we all walk around with guns. And
don't you?
Yeah. And
I've got a potato peeler.
And you also have to understand that these are the people that fought the Civil War. They fought all these different wars.
Yeah.
And sometimes they fought them at home. They were not scared. They weren't scared to get into a fight. And that even though we were, even though at that time we were against, getting involved in foreign wars, it got us involved in a foreign war real quick.
Yeah. Oh, give me, you guys talk amongst yourselves for a moment. I need to step away for 1 sec.
He's gonna go buy more booze.
Yeah. Well, a couple of interesting facts about the movie, as we do at the end of the movie. I'll ask everybody's overall opinion in a moment, but obviously one of the biggest the main reason for doing this show tonight was because we can't but honor the anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor. Although the American armed forces were able to regroup and mount an incredible victory 6 months later, which is a success story about the American spirit. But at the same time, it was a devastating attack, and it's something which turned the tide of the war, but also is, as everybody's already said so far, a poignant memory and something that will always be there. It's as Roosevelt himself said, a day which will live in infamy. And today, as you've said yourself, Jeff, the monument of the war grave, which isn't just a statue, it's the real thing in the harbor, and the Black Tears. But as far as the film is concerned, interestingly, the pacing of the movie, it's a long movie, but it's well paced. The average shot length is about 7 seconds, around 7 seconds a shot. So it does move along quite nicely, and it is a huge task. It took, like I say, 3 years to prepare it, 8 months of production, I think about a year to film and edit and produce it. So, I mean, you're talking like 4 or 5 years roughly to produce this movie. from its beginnings all the way up to when it was, finally produced. I mean, it was based on the 1969 book, so obviously the studio already had the idea that they wanted to produce a movie about the attack on Pearl Harbor. It was the 9th highest grossing film of 1970. So that's not a bad achievement because, 70 and 71, there were some big movies out then. Historical accuracy, it is praised for its historical accuracy. There are some inaccuracies in the movie, but we won't go into those because overall it's a well done movie.
Yeah, they're pretty minor. I've seen them too.
Box office reception. It was thought the box office would be a disappointment in North America because obviously the subject matter, but they got about 29.5 million. So that made it the 9th highest grossing movie of 1970. But it was a huge hit in Japan, and over the years it's got even more popular. Released on DVD, VHS, etc. So it's grossed in Japan over 194 million yen. I don't know what that means in British pounds or dollars, but that seems to be a lot of money. And that's actually the 6th highest grossing film of 1971 in Japan. So it was huge in Japan. But Fox Records, according to them, they say it required 37 million in rentals to break even. And it had already done that by December 1970. So it got a lot of support. Reception wise, the critics, as usual, were scathing because of the subject matter and the time the movie came out. It was around the time of Vietnam, so it was trendy to hit on this movie. So we won't go into what the critics at the New York Times said because that doesn't count. And Variety found the film to be boring. Well, fine, I don't care.
They weren't around watching Return of the Jedi, were they?
Exactly. Well,
not Return of the Jedi. What was it?
Star Wars. New Hope. Yeah. The point is that we know now that for the last 50 years the media is completely biased. So really, we can retrospectively cancel them because that's what they like to do to us. So we'll do it to them. But despite the initial negative reviews, it's become a critically acclaimed film for the action scenes and the aviation and for aviation enthusiasts as well. But yeah, there was obviously as a historical retrospective, it is one of the top 10 most prominent war movies from that era, and it did influence a lot of stuff that came after it. And we've already talked about Midway, the 1976 version of the movie, which really reused a lot of the equipment and production techniques that they learned on this movie. They used on Midway, and they even used the footage. Midway literally cut and paste some of the footage from this movie and put it into Midway, and other movies as well. Final Countdown, we've talked about that, and the movie Australia, even in 2008, was influenced by this movie. I don't know how, and even Magnum PI. I really don't know. I think there was an episode called Lest We Forget of Magnum PI.
Okay.
So there we go. So that featured in Magnum PI. It's won the best special effects. It was a nominee for best art direction, cinematography, film editing, and sound. But the Academy Award winner for best special effects at the time. So overall, gentlemen, what's your thoughts overall of the movie? Starting with Ralph, what would you think about that movie that you've just seen, Ralph, overall?
Overall, I'm impressed with the attention to detail that, and I'm very much impressed with the set work that they did. The partial sets of the Japanese ships, of the Arizona, things like that. The aviation, I'm I'm in awe of, specifically because I'm beyond impressed that they took T6 Texans and modified them enough to where they looked like 3 different aircraft and then 3 different types of aircraft and then flew them. So all of the practical stuff like that and the attention to detail, I'm very, very impressed with. The cinematography, I think, was excellent at points. The miniature work, they put in a ton of work on it. You know, unfortunately, when you compare it with the other things, it just doesn't hold up.
Yeah, not as well.
You know, but all in all, a fine film, and I think a fitting tribute to that day.
Mm-hmm. And Jeff, what are your thoughts overall? I'm assuming you've seen this movie a number of times.
Yeah, my sentiments are pretty much the same. It's the, like I said, the attention to details, the faith of, he's taking his hit, the faith.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I muted. I apologize. And for everybody out there, I am so sorry. I've changed my mic settings and I've been trying to mute, and I didn't realize how bad this picks up. I'm so sorry, folks.
I'm just used to it, that's all.
I'm so sorry.
I don't even mind.
Dude, that was such a great bong hit.
Oh, dude. I know I sound like I just stepped off the set of Dazed and Confused.
It's like the bit when Brundlefly is sucking up the donut.
Yeah, exactly. So I apologize. Please go ahead.
Anyways, I have to agree completely. Attention to detail, fidelity to the actual events. As far as the special effects and the miniature work, it's a picture of its time. You're not going to get. You can only do so much with the technology of the time.
Yeah.
I think the acting is pretty much typical 70s standard fare. That there's sort of I call it the Charlton Heston acting school.
Yeah, Charlton Hestoning. Hey man,
so
you
throwing down the cigarette and running. So
yeah.
But the typical of 70, where they had attention to detail, pacing, timing, like you said, short shots. A lot of build up. The build up was actually great because they were able to take what would have been some pretty stale and boring material and gave it interest, and they built it up for a very long time because they had to maintain the events. So all in all, I think that's really masterful storytelling. As far as criticisms, like I said, it's outside of the acting, and it's a far sight better than what we'll ever get nowadays.
Yeah.
So, and Tony, I'm assuming you've seen this movie a few times as well.
Yeah, I have a long time ago. I didn't sit through it now because I was really late. There's a channel I love on YouTube called History Buffs, and they cover this.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah, and you can always tell if it's a good film because of how much reverence they give it, and it's just nailed it. It's and I like just the thing was talking about the 70s sort of era, and it's the best with what they had. I can forgive a lot of stuff if the intent is pure.
That's a great point.
And that's the thing. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be all that. But if the intent is pure, like I don't mind. I love Godzilla movies. I love him stamping on tanks. They're not real tanks; they're toy tanks. But the intent is he's stamping on tanks. So I'm cool with that because it's just like I get what you're saying. I get what happened, and are you actually successfully conveying that? Yes.
Yeah.
So I mean, I give it a lot of I don't even need to give it leeway. It's not up to me.
Yeah, it's in context. They did the best with what they had at the time.
Yeah, I think it's a great film, and when you compare it to say
Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
And even Midway, which I wanted it to be better than it was.
Yeah, I know.
It's like, I mean, it's better than Pearl Harbor, but so
not a great deal.
you know.
But yeah,
Yeah, I would have to agree.
but yeah, I think overall, as a Brit, I think movies like this are valuable because, okay, they're not 100% accurate. This is quite accurate, and it's a dramatization. But it's useful that these films exist because, you know, we talk about movies as a genre. It is, whether it's movies, and obviously very different art forms. Writing and movies are very different art forms, but it's about storytelling. We talk about the hero's journey. We talk about the same stories that are being told over and over again. And this movie is definitely found its place historically, describing an event which has certainly embedded itself in world history, and it serves to non-Americans to teach them about this event occurring, and to try and translate the importance of what that event was to people who aren't Americans. And so
Absolutely.
it's I mean, the closest we have in Britain to this is maybe Dunkirk, you know, which
Yeah.
was
that was actually a really good film.
yeah, and that was really well done. So maybe we'll get Christopher Nolan. Personally, I'm a fan of Christopher. I know a lot of people aren't a fan of Christopher. I do actually like his stuff, but maybe we'll get him to do a version of Pearl Harbor. Who knows? You know, but anyway, but overall,
I don't think it needs it, because I think this movie is perfect enough. I
think so.
I don't need remakes of stuff.
No,
It's like,
that's right.
yeah.
I mean, I was only thinking in terms of if they were to do
Oh,
another
sure,
modern
yeah.
remake, that's one of the few people I think might be able to do a decent job with it if they did
absolutely
do a revamp. But yeah, I mean, we've got this movie already, and this serves to do what it should do, and it communicates the events of that day. So I think overall, it is a really good movie when we look at all of this, because when I rewatched it tonight with you guys, I watched it on my own, and I was watching it to get the factual details. But when you watch it again and again, you can point out and find more bits in it that you didn't notice first time round.
Yeah.
And I think when you take it in context of when it was made as well, it is a tremendous achievement when you think about all the production that was involved. So it's a valuable movie, and it obviously communicates a really important event. And once again, you know, I just want to pay respect to everybody who was involved on that day, on the American services, in the Navy, in the Air Force, well, the American Army Air Corps, and everybody who was at that event, obviously the survivors, but also the fallen heroes. And the fact that this event changed the course of the World War II, and obviously America entered the war, and everything changed. On that day, everything changed, and world history changed. So before we go, I'll just thank all of my guests. Tony Nasser has his own website, YouTube as well. He has a website, but he has a YouTube channel, and he's doing his own shows right now. Isn't that right, Tony? So what's
it's mainly just the sort of conversations I usually had in the shop, in my comic shop. So it's sort of talking about comics and movies and stuff like that. But
so go over and subscribe to Tony. Anybody who's watching this, check out his channel. Jeff, have you got your own channel yet, or
not yet? Well, actually, I do, but I don't have much on there. So when I do, I'll let you know.
And what else have you got going on right now?
Right now, I'm getting ready to release a book called The Revenant and the Tomb. It's a fantasy book. Yeah, I just got the artwork, and I just contacted for a proofread, so it'll be out sometime next year.
And where will people be able to buy that?
Well, the first release I'm going to do as a PDF. It will be available on my website. So you, if you sign up to subscribe to my website, then after that it'll be available in places like Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and whatnot.
So what's the name of the website?
My website is www.hermanphunterwriter.com. or excuse me, hphunterwriter.com.
So is that Herman P. Hunter, all one word?
No, it's HP Hunter.
HP Hunter, all one word.
Writer. Yeah, writer, all one word.
No worries. So,
I don't even know
anybody...
my own website. That's pretty sad.
You sound like me.
I thought Americans were natural salesmen.
Not this guy.
So if I got it right there, I've posted a link in the chat, hphunterwriter.com. Is that right?
Yep.
Good. And finally, our very own Ensign Ralph, who we know has a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
What is the name of that YouTube channel, Ralph?
It is They Call Me Ralph. So just basically, if you search for They Call Me Ralph, you'll find me. I'm also going to start up an OnlyFans. So if you have trouble getting nightmares or vomiting heavily, you can subscribe to my OnlyFans. So
that's good to know. So, well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Once again, it's been great. I'm at the point where I'm about to get strangled by my wife because it's about 2:45 in the morning, and I have to get up in 4 hours for work. That's going to be entertaining.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having us on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's been great, and I think it's. I think the actual event is on Tuesday, isn't it? The commemoration event. Yeah, but this is something that we had to acknowledge because it's one of the biggest events in 20th century history and a huge event that can't go unmentioned, and something which we had to pay respects to. So once again, gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the show, and we hope everybody who joined in enjoyed it. And obviously we had Cosmetti in the chat, we had Jeff in the chat, who then came on the show. Then we had Tony in the chat, who came on the show,
and he's regretting every minute of me jumping in.
Don't worry, there won't be any copyright strikes. If there are, it'll probably be something I've put at the start of on the little intro videos. That's what usually happens.
It'll be your nose harp.
It'll be the nose harp. I will get a copyright claim from Mr. Nose Harp from Honolulu, who will complain and say, that is my trademark tune. How dare you? But anyway, so thanks very much to everybody and everybody who watched and everybody who'll watch recorded. And once again, to everybody who will be part of the tribute on Tuesday, our deepest respects to you and yours for the sacrifice that was made all those years ago in 1941. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Good night, all.
Good night, John.